And we are live now, and it looks like we got Don in the house.
Hey, Don!
So we got at least people watching, and we're at full capacity now. So we got Cliff here, we got Elaine, we got myself here. We were kind of talking about some behind the scenes stuff, dealing with some C2E2 drama, and it hasn't gotten any better.
Well, the end is the bank says they are refunding me.
Mhm.
So, but it has to go from their bank and clear it, and then into my bank and clear it. So,
Right,
and as I told my son, it's a refund when I've actually got the money.
right,
Because they're not paid until they've actually got the money. I ain't repaid till I've actually got the money.
right.
And then I'll go to they gave me the number and everything at BBB. I'll go to BBB and I'll update them and let them know what's happened. But until then,
And what I'm going to find interesting about that is because they are a Florida outfit, it makes me wonder what the BBB going to really do. And to me, it's not one of those things that is an easy fix. It goes against their record. It might hurt their standing if they are a member. And that's the other thing. If they are a member, it will hurt their standings, or the BBB would have probably did something to intervene.
their name came up as soon as I started typing out the KA dash
Uh-huh.
and the B and L. Their name did pop up. So either they've had complaints before or they were a member. I'm
Right.
not sure. But it was like, okay, we just not y'all just kind of want to play it this way. And you forget I'm a Marine, I got PTSD. If I have to go nuclear, it's gonna be ugly.
Mm-hmm.
And ugly is what it was, you know. But
And to be quite honest, it's like I had very little difficulties with said company, but there were difficulties, and that I kind of understand some of the reasons why you feel the way that you feel, because I had times where it's like they said they shipped something on time and they really didn't, but they made the right choices to get things in my hands. But this was one of the few times that I know of that they didn't get stuff in your hands in a timely fashion.
as I told the BBB, you know, if it is becoming where FedEx and postal service and stuff is becoming more unreliable, they need to up their site to say, hey, we will still do a last minute job, but we can't guarantee delivery. And if you trying to get it fast, you have to go for priority mail express. Because that's what post office people kept. And the lady at the post office customer service is like, well, I tell everybody just to use another service. It's like, wow.
No, that's the U.S. Post Office, and the sad thing about that is they know they're sorting. They will lose stuff quick, fast, in a hurry. They will lose stuff even after they say, "Oh, it hits this particular post office." They will lose stuff like that within that same post office. Like, we don't know where it's at, knowing
I
good and well it's sitting right there in front of their face.
I have mailed that the housing authority sent me notification in November that my rent was going to change this month, that it was going to go up, that the landlord was getting an increase and my share of the rent was going up, and I never got it. It never arrived. And it cracked me up because supervisor from the Hayes it was trying to make it sound like, she's so, Johnny on the spot and on top of things. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna just let this go. I get it. You're happy because for once it's not your post office that's done it.
Mm-hmm.
But girl, you need to stop. But enough of that. Hey Cliff,
Buddy,
you feeling okay?
I'm
Thank
here.
thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's not our story to tell, so you can share or not. It's up to you.
Uh, It's real. I mean, it's kind of my story, but it's more my wife's story to tell. So outside of what I've told y'all, I don't. Um, for all the folks out there who don't believe some things that they see on the news are as bad as they make it out to be, they're worse. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay.
And until she tells me or she wants to say something to the broader audience, that's her call. But yeah, we're nowhere any different than we were when I messaged you guys about it. So,
Okay. And
but
I'm
yes.
looking at my picture and the portion of our thingy. Notice my arms, Joe. Put my arms down. My
I was like,
hand is
she's
in your
not moving. That's like you're not moving. It's like there's a reason why you're not moving your
It just,
arm.
I'm sorry. I just saw it was like, oh my goodness. Yeah. Okay. I get that. Anyway, despite the emotional distress, despite um, the humiliation
Mhm.
of, and for those of you who don't know, my stuff never arrived in time for C2E2. I didn't have my comics, no mini posters. I still had copies of The Enslaved and a couple of itty bitty paintings and stuff that I did, but the book, the comic itself, never arrived. It's lost somewhere in the Indianapolis, Indiana post office. They don't know. it's, it's a mystery. So, you know, and I have been between spending an entire day. Usually it takes me a couple of hours. I spent an entire day doing my taxes because it was every time I turned around, there was some little thing that wasn't quite right. You know, and it was like, has Doge gotten into the IRS, and that's why it's not. Every time I turn around, there's something that's wrong, and every time we fix one thing they said wasn't right, something else was wrong. It was just it was a complete ish show. So on top of that, to then not have my stuff, but I will say, despite that, we did get some engagement in. We
Mhm.
met a lot of really sweet, interesting people. I posted a ton of pics. I don't know if you saw, if you're on my Facebook or not, Cliff. I know we're in the chat, but I don't know if you follow me on Facebook. Um, when I'm at C2E2 or someplace, I love the cosplayers.
Mhm.
So I will take, I have a thing. I give them a piece of candy or two, and they post their picture. So there are quite a few pics of people of the con. That there were some really great cosplayers this year, and it was really fun to see. Also, I got presents. Joe gave me this. It's
Oh, nice.
Michelle. I love me Michelle,
Oh,
and I'm gonna frame it. I'm gonna find a really nice frame, and I'm gonna frame her up, and I'm gonna move some stuff around because she's going on the wall.
Okay, that's a good thing.
You know,
mm,
and I have a book for tonight that Joe also gave me.
Mhm.
I found two copies of it on Amazon, so I think that counts.
Okay.
So it's it's old, but I found them on Amazon. So I can talk about it on tonight because I actually found it on Amazon. And there are people who come to the con now and they give you stuff.
hmm She
They
she
give
got
you
a lot of freebies. She got a lot of freebies, and she was so happy. There's Brad. Brad's here. So good evening, Brad.
Okay, Brad isn't popping up on mine. I don't.
Yeah, he said he's on Facebook. He's here.
Okay, that's what it is.
So
Okay.
you would see it in the StreamYard chat, but not on the YouTube which you're looking from.
Yeah, I'm looking on the YouTube.
Right.
so was it a good crowd this year at CTU2?
I sold some books.
Yes, she sold some books. I didn't.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
She sold some books.
Every time he walked away, that's when people came to buy. Because there were twice he walked away. Twice I sold books.
I have one of my real close friends is a self-published comic artist and writer, and I've gone to help him at conventions, and it would never fail. As soon as he left the booth and I'm there by myself, people would come up and start asking questions. And I'm just like, he draws pretty.
I at least I at least have more than that because I edit.
Mm,
So it's like, yeah, I'm his editor, Joe's the artist and he's the writer. I just edit and I just make sure all the periods in the right place because, it's all women. Ha ha ha.
it I every once in a while would help him like with some of the I don't even know the proper term, the reference art for some of the fight scenes and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, but that's about as far as I'd ever go with it. And it would never be questions I knew the answers to, because I knew, like, okay, this is how much a print is, this is how much a book is, this is that, and then I'm like, how much would it be for a commission of someone from the Avengers dressed up like a clown? What?
So that's the part where you go, well, you know what? He stepped away to the bathroom. If you can come back in 10 minutes and ask that question again, he'll have an answer for you. And luckily though, we never left Courtney, my assistant, by herself because she knows enough about my stuff to say, okay, if I leave my phone with her, she knows how to pull it out, how to put up my square trade and do the phone thing. That I learned some stuff about my phone because on the back of my phone there used to be a little ring here that attached magnetically, and the magnet in the little ring clip was actually not letting me take credit card payments on my phone.
Really?
So I had to take it off. Once we took it off, it got a little easier. But we were also there were a few issues with the Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
So things would take a little longer. But I sold one book for actual money. And then we sold two with credit cards, and I sold a mini painting. So it's like, that's the most money I've ever made. This was my third con as a pro, and that was the most money I'd ever made at a con.
Well, congratulations.
But it was just, but it was like, I think I could have made more money because when I was talking about the comic, people were more interested in the comic. And it was like, and they were like, oh, wow, I want to see the comic. It's like, I don't have copies. I'm sorry. But at least they could if they go to I told them, go to my Amazon author page. You can see a couple of free pages. And then if they wanted the book, they could get it on Kindle. And then I told them later, once I've got the printing thing worked out, they could contact me if they wanted to come to the site. There's a little thing on my website. You can contact me directly. No AI. And I respond within 24 hours. And so if they read the book on Kindle and decide they want a copy, then I can maybe work it out. I found 2 printers here in Chicago, Joe, that I'm gonna once I get through Easter and don't want to murder the world every time I step outside the door, I am going to call and set up some appointments and go talk to people and explain what I'm looking for and find out if they can, if they can help and what it'll cost. So I haven't shut it down. I'm not gonna, because my first was like, maybe I'm not meant to do this, Maybe I'm not meant to do this, because if I was meant to do this, it would be easier. It wouldn't be, why is it this hard to do something this simple? And it was like, well, maybe I'm not. And I was jealous of you because it was like, he got his books.
Well,
He put in his order after me and he got his books.
I been a customer a lot longer than
they like you.
This is your first time dealing with them, where I have been dealing with them for years. So there's a major difference. So I have kind of like a track record with them, and you don't. And that was the thing that I was up here. It's like, I
Oh,
hope I don't have to get involved.
she told me I needed to go get help. And I'm like, okay, you should be happy you are in Florida, and I'm not in Florida, because y'all will walk in the office and find alligators. You know?
It's not that. It's just, you're a first timer with them and everything. It's weird. And trust me, that company is not the first printer I have ever been through, and I know other printers that I know of that we could have got the stuff printed and back before now. So it was just one of those things. It's just one of those weird happenstance, because like I said, I got my books back. I got them back for her, and the bad thing about it is, like, I submitted my stuff after her.
Well, Christine Grigg, when I was first trying to find a printer because I couldn't get Amazon to do, Amazon can do the Kindle version, but they can't for some reason figure out how to make a print copy of the book. You upload your file, and then they have a thing that previews the book for you so you can see what it's going to look like. And there were all my page spreads were chopped in half. So either this half of the page, the left page would be okay, and the right page would be missing, or the right page would be there and the left page would be missing. And it wouldn't be later on in the book. They just weren't there. And I tried, like, okay, I'll put, because they were like, well, the first page starts on the left because you open it, you open it the American way. So you're going left page, and it's like, okay, I will make sure I have enough blank black pages there so that when you open it, I've got enough, the number works out so that the 2-page spread should be okay.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't work. No matter how I tried to do it, I could not get this thing to work. And it was like, okay, I do not have enough patience. Courtney would tell you, when I'm sitting there screaming, it's kind of like, okay, have some tea, go sit down. Or you want a little hot chocolate with a little sploosh in it?
Sploosh is like,
A little sploosh.
it's like, here's it's like, here, the sploosh is a little bit of calming agents, aka alcohol.
you know, little a little raspberry hot chocolate with a sploosh of Baileys. Sometimes you just need you just need something to even you out at the end of the day.
I just don't see her coming in with that and then patting you on the head and be like, it's okay, and then walking away without having enough at the end of the day, or having some type of combat wound. It just doesn't seem like it will work.
It does. She kind of people have been avoiding the heck out of me today. They've been kind of like, okay, you're not in a good mood. This is even worse than tax day. We're gonna just leave you alone. Let you just chill. Because I got to the point where I had to make one last grocery store run, and I just got dressed and grabbed my stuff, and it's like, okay, I'm out the door. Yeah. Courtney was like, she was looking at me like, you're not gonna wait. It's like, no, I gotta get out now. She was like, okay, we'll see you when you get home. And I was so mad. I got out and forgot my keys. So on the way home, I had to call my son about a block away going, I don't have my keys, so I can't get in the building. So, I looked very stupid today, just in case anybody's wondering. But there were a couple little bright spots. I looked through my goodie bags. I will next time show the presents I got, except for one thing, which Courtney and I each got, that we showed to Joe.
It's not the first time that I've seen stuff like that, because I know people who actually do stuff like that actually do give models of that type of stuff away.
Well, but it made sense once we explained the story behind it.
Right.
Did it not?
Yes.
We were explaining, and I'll explain it later in the chat. It's It's a word we shouldn't use here. You know, it'll it'll mess up our rating. There are those words where they can do it on Critical Role, but here
Mhm.
they would pull our plug. So
Ah.
I will post a story, or Joe can post a story. But we showed him it was actually a Critical Role joke, and we showed him two of the stories behind it, and I think he enjoyed this. You enjoyed the temple one.
The Temple one was crazy. That one was crazy, but I enjoyed the other one about, oh yeah, what are you gonna offer in return? A lot better. It's like the
Cause
DM
that's the
face, the DM
deliciousness.
face just said it all. It's like, oh, by the way, it was sprinkled with the dust of deliciousness.
It's. I will find the link and post it in the group. They Laura Bailey, and if you've ever seen The Last of Us or Full Metal Alchemist, regular and Brotherhood, as well as a host of other shows, Laura Bailey is a beast when it comes to playing D&D. The DM will think he's and Matt Mercer as a DM is usually 20 steps ahead, and he's playing chess. Laura is playing 50 dimensional poker because she will pull things out of a hat that a couple of times that Matt has just went, what? And the look on his face, because it's a scene where he thinks he has her in a corner. He has got her backed up, and he's already done it to everybody else in the crew. There's only her and another character, and he thinks he has her on the ropes. And at the moment he's about to celebrate his victory, she just pulls it out from under him, and she does it where she doesn't give it away until the last minute.
The Temple one, she almost messed it up. She almost messed up because she
The
almost
temple
she
one.
almost forgot what she had. He's like,
Hey,
he was like, oh wait, I still have one more spell that I could activate on the day. Like, and she was like, how am I going to get out? How am I going to get out? It's like, and she's like, and you can tell on her face, like, oh, this is not going right. This is not going right. Anyway, it's like, wait a second. And then she thought about it, and then they flash back, and it's like, yeah, you could do this, and you have to have one more enchanted spell to have that to work. And flashback, and then she came back. It's like, oh yeah, I do have one more left. I'm going to use this.
it's a D&D thing. And Critical Role are all voice actors, and they're
Hmm.
well-known voice actors. You might not know their names, but once you hear their voices, it's like, oh, that's the guy from this. Matt Mercer has been in Midnight Suns. He's done Leon in the what is it again? Resident. He's done Leon Kennedy and Resident Evil. He's got. They all have at least what is it? Marisha Ray has the fewest credits of any of them, but the rest of them, and Ashley Johnson, who I adore because she's the blind ditz. We call her Titty woman, but um, she was in the first Avengers movie.
Hmm.
The blonde waitress that Captain America saves in the little restaurant. And then at the end, where people talk about the Avengers, it's like, no, they saved our lives. That's Ashley Johnson.
Okay.
And then and her other Marvel connection is the woman who played the Lady Sif, then got a series on NBC. Ashley was in that series. She played the computer nerd, and it's really funny because she really hates all the nerd speak, but she does it so well.
Hmm.
She does it so well. But it was just,
But you have to see those scenes. You have to see those scenes to really understand the gravity of
yes.
how
I'm
how
terrible at I'm terrible at picking out voice actors and voice actresses when I hear them. my kid, my kids are like experts at it now. We'll be watching the show, and they're like, "Daddy, that's the person who does Mabel from Gravity Falls." I'm like, "They said 2 words. How do you know this?" They just
Yeah, it's like Louise from Bob's Burgers. It's Mabel from
mm.
Gravity Falls.
The
I can think
only
of the
people I
actress
can
name because she was also on. I forgot the name of the sitcom.
Is that Cree Summer
No,
from a different world?
no.
Because I know she.
Cree Summer was number 5 in Kid Next Door, and what most people don't
Yes,
realize is that she was also Penny from Inspector Gadget.
oh really
Yes.
Cree Summer. If you've watched a Nickelodeon show in the last 20 years, Cree
mm.
Summer has done at least half of them in
A
one
lot of
way or
voices.
another.
Yeah.
The only voices that I've ever been able to pick up on are there. I'm sure everybody knows what Peppa Pig is,
Peppa
right?
Pig.
Yeah, it's a kids
I,
show.
I
It's a British kids show.
I know the name,
All right.
but
There's
my
an
youngest knows it.
there's another one, Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom, which is made by the same studio, and they use the
Oh,
same voice actors. So I'm able to pick. I'm like the wise old elf is Grandpa Pig.
ah, oh, he
I,
froze.
that's it.
Yep.
He kind of
Yeah.
froze there for a second.
But yeah, my girls are really good at it. I think when I was younger, I could pick up that Cobra Commander and Starscream were the same person, but that was about
Yep.
it.
And I
Yeah.
loved it when Cobra Commander was on Transformers. You know, he actually played Cobra Commander on Transformer
Yes,
as a
when they became
retired terrorist who was like, "Oh,
humans
you
for
guys are
10 minutes.
trying to do this." I remember
Yeah.
the very end of that episode. It's like they just don't make terrorists like they used to.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah. This group, they've all ended up like Travis, who was the CEO of the Critical Role Corporation, and Laura Bailey. Travis Willingham and Laura Bailey are married. Among the fandom, they are legend. They portrayed. He portrayed Colonel Roy Mustang in the Full Metal Alchemist series. She
Mm.
portrayed Lust.
Mm.
They met while they were both in college in Texas. And then she moved to LA because she was getting jobs with Funimation. And they were like, oh, we can give you more jobs if you move out to LA. And when when they knew each other, he was like, can you give me jobs at Funimation? And then when he finally moved out to LA and they reconnected, it was like, can you help me get a job with Funimation? And I think she helped him get that job.
Mm.
But I don't know if you've ever seen Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Full Metal Alchemist in One Piece. I've never been able to get into.
Oh, okay. There's a scene where Travis's
Mhm.
character kills Laura's character. And the way she responds to him is more like a seduction. He's burning her alive, and she's like, "You're killing me, Mustang." I'm like, "Oh my goodness, are they in the? And it's like, okay, are they in the booth together? Is she just picking on Travis or something and making him blush? Because there's just the way she's responding. It's like 5 seconds short of sexual.
Hmm.
And it's like, and I could just see Travis just busting out and turning red. And it's like, I wonder how many takes it took to get that scene. and Laura is just, she's a beast. She was in her character in The Last of Us killed Joel, and she got flack for it. She didn't write the scene, but she was the
So
character.
she was Abby. Okay.
And people were really mad at her. But she's got a BAFTA.
Mm.
So, and the only other person who's got like big awards like that in that crew is Sam Riegel, who has an
Mm.
Emmy for children's television. One of the things that Sam is known for is Folgers. The best part of waking
Mhm.
Waking up is Folgers in
Folgers
your
in your
cup.
cup. Yeah. I didn't know that till there was an episode he actually sang that. And it's like, okay, the only reason you could sing this much of that song is because you wrote it.
Yep.
But yeah, it is. I critical. You have to, like I said, I will post links.
Okay.
It's bawdy, but it's fun and enjoyable. And the whole point of a woman and a little goblin, a tiefling and goblin sneak into it sounds like the joke, to what was it? A monk, a clone, and a Ferengi walk into a bar. A tiefling and a goblin walk in to a temple, so the tiefling can paint things. He can desecrate a statue by painting male genitalia on it.
As you do.
Yeah, and it just we call them the Chaos Crew for a reason because they are Insanity Incorporated. You know, but my other thing I got that Joe gave me that I love.
The story.
This,
There's a story about a 6'7" woman
I
who was
love,
caught off guard with pictures by a magazine.
and I remember this thing was 60 cents back in the day.
Hmm.
Of course, you know this one because he gave me a couple goes way back. It's 25 cents. You don't even know how many bottles and cans I used to collect as a kid and take and wash out and take to the store to recycle so I could get candy bars or a candy bar, potato chips, a soda, and a comic book. you know, I worked for my comic book money.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I love this one. Actually, I love all three of these stories, but I specifically love this one, and it is my pick for tonight.
Hmm.
So when we do our stories, but I will already tell you this one gets 50 Vivian heads
Yes.
because you know it's a great story. Um, and it's one of those stories. Um, it injects humor into it in a way. It was delightful. I just loved it. It showed the strength of Jessica. I mean Jen. It showed her strength not just physically. It's I love the fact that it proved her strength not just physically, and the fact that she's sharp and she don't play that. and
I
and
just like
and
the end of how she did play that.
yes, the end is so good. The end is so good. Did you have
Yeah,
a book clip?
I always liked She-Hulk in Fantastic Four. I don't I thought she fit. I,
Well,
she was like one of
considering
those
that,
characters that mhm.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna,
I'll
she's
finish
one of
my
those
thought later.
characters that she doesn't do that well in her own book. I think she always needs somebody to play off of. And I thought she did really well in Fantastic Four. I don't know. I'm not a big John Byrne fan, but I always liked his Fantastic Four. Um,
I do too.
X-Men, his X-Men was eh. Um, his
Boo.
Superman something I'd fight him about, but I always liked his Fantastic Four, and I thought he always did a good job with Sue and with Jennifer in Fantastic Four. Um,
I I love the fact that she and Johnny kind of have this sort of big sister little bro
mhm,
type connection. And
mhm.
and you see that at the end of the book. You see that at the end of the book. It was it was one of those things. I remember reading it and it gave me a giggle then, and I reread it today and it gave me a little bit of a giggle now because it was like, yep, this is why I loved her in this because also, yeah, she was another heavy hitter for the team.
Mhm.
You know, she was another heavy hitter, so she could balance out the thing. She could balance him out, the thing. But at the same time, she was sort of this great blend because she was also really, really smart.
Mhm.
And it gave Sue another woman on the team
Mhm.
to talk to and connect with and whatnot. Because, you know, Sue, everybody, you know, the men kind of like, oh, we have to protect Sue. Sue's delicate. We must protect Sue. We must keep Sue safe. And Jen's kind of like, come on, girl, let's go do this. You know,
And it was always so funny because
this
Sue's
button
like the
needs
most
to be,
powerful member of the team.
She is the most powerful member of the team.
but as someone who had been reading them as a child and watching
Mhm.
the animated series, yes, she is the most powerful uh, of the team. She has faced down Sandman and scared the bejesus out of him because he was trying to attack their son. And
Mhm.
then he was coming to her like, I'm gonna just pound you into the ground. And she says, yeah, you could pound me into the ground. You could probably do me a lot of damage if you had arms to hit me with. And
Mhm.
she was throwing up force fields and just whittling his body away, you know.
Mhm.
And he's just starts, oh my god, you know. You just see him lose it. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. Did you just think she was the pretty face in the group? No, that's Johnny's job. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was, you know, it was that because she, you know, sometimes it is usually the quieter ones in the group that you need to be afraid of
Mhm.
because they're the ones who aren't out there going, yeah, I'm gonna whoop your butt and hurt you, and yeah, I'm gonna do this and do that. And she's like, no, I'm gonna just get up here and do it.
Mhm.
You know, I'm gonna walk right up to you and go, pain.
And I hate to break it to all of us nerds out there who believe that Sue and Reed would have lived through anything together, but
No,
I would have
they
taken
won't.
Namor in a heartbeat.
No, actually, I could see her leaving Reed for Namor
I know,
temporarily.
me too. I
But
would.
it's like getting back to the other thing here.
Mm,
No pun intended. Ben purposely picked Jennifer to
mm,
replace them. And you have to go back to his title to understand why. He made certain that the family dynamic stayed.
Yes.
So when he was up here like, well, I don't want to be a part of it anymore. I need, you know, when he was still mad at Reed for a couple of other things that, you know, Reed at that time, it's like Reed sometimes just loses it. He just loses it. We're about to go over here to explore this. But Reed, we're about to open up the negative zone dimension. We don't want a nihilist to get out. We'll worry about that later. I was like,
Reed,
no, Reed, you can't let a nihilist out. What is the rest of the world going to do when a nihilist comes to Earth? We'll figure it out when we get there. But this other thing is going to happen within the next 20 minutes. We need to get there now. It's like, what's wrong with you, Reed? What's
mhm,
wrong?
Reed is classically he oftentimes is more concerned with whether he can instead of whether he should. There
mhm,
are times when Reed allows his curiosity to get the better of him. And I think in that regard, it can make him kind of a danger to the group. But he's also the guy who convinced the Galactus that, you know, he should go collect daisies somewhere other than Earth. You know,
mhm,
and he convinced Galactus not to eat the planet. So I will give him that because the squirrels couldn't do it.
mhm.
You know, Galactus showed up in the squirrel world and they were like, oh, okay, we did. You know,
But then again, Sue also proved to Reed that he's not the smartest man on the planet.
Mhm.
that too.
And there's several times in the Fantastic Four books where she would bring up simple things like love. It's just like love. It's like love is magical. It's like, and Reed was like, no, it's not. You know, scientifically, so it could be this, and this. And then she would be like, Reed, must we go through this again? It's like, yeah, because it's not magical. I was like, okay, well, then what about this scenario? And she breaks down the scenario, this, that, the other. That cannot be scientifically explained. It's like, well, uh, you know what? You got a point there.
But I
See,
mean, but
magical.
that is one of her gifts is
she's
that
more.
she balances them. You know, they may be the big showy powers, but she kind of where they're the she's more heart and soul.
She's more than heart and soul.
You know,
She is task coordinator. She could run the Fantastic Four without Reed each and every time. There have been issues where it was just her, Johnny, and Ben, and they were perfectly fine. She's just as smart or smarter than Reed.
well,
Reed
yeah,
knows his science. Don't get me wrong. Sue is practical.
yeah.
Sue is a tactician, more so than Reed. Like you
I
said,
think,
the
in fact,
quiet ones don't
that
say
was
much
her
of anything.
position that was her position on the crew when Reed was running the science. Johnny was managing the he was the pilot. But I think her position was the more tactical position
Mm.
when they went on the voyage that got them the powers to begin with. But I love the fact that she, there are things there's things that she, Storm, and Kurt Wagner all have in common. There's that sort of it's not religious, it's a spiritual center.
Mm-hmm.
There is a spiritual center. There's like, this is what I know to be right and true in the world, and I'm not going to step over it one way or the other. This is what my truth is, and I know this. And because of this, this allows me to act in the world and be in the world and do what I need to do. Um, as opposed to other characters who are constantly, oh, superhero angst.
Well, I'm still one of those ones that still would like to have Malice back, the Malice persona back for Sue.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't there at for the Malice
It
persona.
was during the time. It was during the time of the book that you just got too.
Oh, okay.
It was doing the John Byrne run. Malice, her in the Malice persona, in the Malice mentality, is a danger.
Mm-hmm.
She, again, going back to being tactical. She was messing up the Fantastic Four by herself.
Mm-hmm.
By herself, and it was just at whim. It's like all these other teams were trying to come and try to help. She would just mess them up because of the simple fact that nobody truly understood her powers but her.
Mm-hmm.
How in
No.
the world do you stop a Hulk? Mind you, it's still Jennifer.
Mm-hmm.
How do you stop a Hulk just with force fields? And not just force fields, using the force fields in such a way where it had a gravitational pull. So it's nothing that Jennifer could have done to like literally break away from it. The ground and stuff was sinking below her, and she was sinking even deeper than that because the force fields that she surrounded her kept
Mm-hmm.
the gravity in such a way where the more she struggled, the more she weighed,
Now,
and
see,
the more strength that she had to exert.
see, that's how you outthink an opponent. You go, okay, what's their
Then
weakness?
and then what she did to Reed, she almost killed Reed. It's like, oh yeah, I'm your husband, this, that, and the other. You want to kill me? It's like, oh really? And it's like, yeah, you won't physically hurt me. You won't even. It's like, okay, fine. I won't do it. I won't do it by throwing a force field at you or anything like that. She put a force field in his lung. It's like, I could suck the air from you right now.
I
And then
always
all of a
liked
sudden you see him gasp. All of a sudden out of nowhere he was gasping. He was gasping for air.
I liked the what was it? What was he called? The Maker, the ultimate version of Reed Richards, where you got to
That
see an evil Reed. I liked that just because I'm like, Reed Richards annoys me really bad, but evil Reed Richards, I can get. I could probably hang out with him.
I didn't like the Maker. I didn't like the Maker as much as I like Reed Richards Doom when he was Doom.
I
Reed was
loved
doomed.
Yes,
yeah.
What
What was
happened
it?
to Victor?
they swapped. They swapped bodies, I believe, at
Mhm.
one time.
Okay.
What was it?
Sebastian Shaw
And
wasn't in.
Reed had the body of Victor.
Sebastian Shaw didn't get in that sort of thing because that was
Mm-mm,
something he was good at.
mm-mm.
What was what did Jonathan Hickman call it? The Council of Reeds, where you saw all the different Reeds in the
Yeah.
multiverse.
Hmm.
I like that. That was funny. That was a good read.
I have to see if I can find that.
And to me, that I think that was one of the premises that Rick and Morty used.
Hmm.
Was the concept of the Council of Reeds eventually became the Council of Ricks.
Hmm. And what was it? It was the Parliament of Doom, right? Where there was a whole bunch of
Hmm.
different dooms. Yeah.
Hmm. But at least the Parliament of Dooms were people who literally learned and followed after
Mm,
Victor.
right.
They were different people. They weren't different incarnations of Victor. They were
Oh,
literally
okay.
different people.
Yeah.
So they were okay.
Okay.
Unlike
Yeah.
the council, unlike the council, unlike the council of
Well,
Reed.
the Council of Reeds, and they had in their little clubhouse or whatever in the basement, they had all the lobotomized dooms from the different multiverses they'd been to. Yeah.
Dang.
I like those Fantastic Four stories where it's like the most out there sci-fi cosmic stuff you can get. I don't like Fantastic Four where they're just Ma and Pa Kettle doing stuff around New York City let any other superhero you read can do. I like I like the big grand adventure Fantastic Four. I'm not so much the we could replace any member of them with Marvel character A or B from New York and it would be the same story. I don't like those.
So he
Mm.
Never
hate.
have.
So that tells me you hated New Fantastic Four.
Only because I hate Wolverine. Um,
You, see, you know what I'm talking about, Elaine.
mhm.
New Fantastic Four.
No.
Look,
Okay.
look. I understand all about marketing and this character picked this up and he's a cool character, but the little 4 foot tall guy from Canada with the pig stickers is not in the same league as a dude who can control somebody who can control the weather and can blast mountains in half with his eyeballs. I don't want to hear it about him. I just don't.
The whole team dynamic was messed up, but I have to give it to Sue.
Mm,
Sue figured out a combination that the enemy would never expect. Because think
mhm.
about it: the Hulk, Wolverine, Spider-Man, and Ghost Rider.
Yep.
Dang.
Out of
Not,
all the three people, they kind of fit the dynamics of the regular team here.
mhm.
Yeah, but
Spider-Man was the science guy. Wolverine was Johnny. Hulk was Thing, and the most powerful person was Ghost Rider.
Yep. But it was
It-
the Joe Fixit Hulk, which made it even better.
yes,
Yes. Which
which
I
one
have
is
the
the Joe
figure of.
Fix-It Hulk?
the
Because
gray
He's the
one.
gray Hulk who wore the
he was
suit
the
and
one
tie
that
and thought he
became
was,
the criminal.
Yeah,
yeah,
the
Like
he was a
gangster,
was
he's the criminal
became the
mastermind.
gangster. Yes, the one that
a
became the
gangster,
gangster.
yeah.
Okay, Gangsta Hulk. Yeah. Um, my youngest
Yeah.
favorite is the Hulk and the agent. He likes the Agent of Smash Hulks.
Well, eventually it got to that. Eventually it got to that where when he became green again and everything, and then they brought
This Hulk.
back Rick Jones as
Yeah,
J-Mo. Yes, there he is, Joe Fixit Hulk. Yep, the gangster.
yeah. John likes the agents of. He likes his Hulk simple, easy to understand. If it gets too complex, he gets headaches. So
I I loved Peter David having the what do they call it, the Professor Hulk when it was all the merged personalities. I liked that version of the Hulk.
Professor Hulk I didn't like as much as Doc Green.
I didn't read Doc Green.
So you don't remember the Doc Green saga where pretty much that Hulk went around curing everybody else from gamma radiation and only left
Mm-mm.
Jennifer. It's like, Jennifer, here's the vial. I'm not going to cure you because you're the only one that's worthy to be Hulk because
I
he was
read
dying.
Peter David's Hulk. I
Peter
okay.
didn't
David
read
did
any
some
more
good things
Hulk.
for Hulk. He did some good things for Hulk, but there was
I read
two runs
I
after
read
that.
Future Imperfect, and I read Immortal Hulk. That was as much Hulk as I can take.
It
I
was
want to read
it was
Planet.
before Immortal Hulk, but
Mhm.
after Futures Imperfect.
I'll
I would
track it
like to.
down.
I would like to read Planet Hulk because the idea of Hulk going to a planet where him being him and all his himness was okay. You know, he didn't have to try and be anywhere else. It was like my understanding was as he ends up on this planet, he found a chick. You know, for a while he had some happiness.
Well, he ended up on the planet because his friends on Earth didn't want to deal with him, and they just shot him into space without his consent.
Damn.
No, tell the real story of the Illuminati. People don't realize what they did that led to the events of Planet Hulk and then afterwards World War Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
The Illuminati, which if I remember correctly, was what Reed, Iron Man,
Professor X,
Namor, Professor Xavier, uh, uh,
Black Bolt.
Black Bolt, and Black Panther.
Yep.
Black Bolt, really?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have thought Black Bolt might have been the one
Because
descending.
I remember why they did. They literally tricked Hulk and prisoned him into this rocket. Out of all the people that served on the Illuminati, the one person that tried to come to his rescue was Namor. Because Namor is like, no, this is not right. He's too much of an ally to send off into space
Mm-hmm.
and to detonate the rocket. They found a
Oh,
way to destroy the Hulk by this one rocket that had this special type of armament that would have irradiated him to death.
ooh.
So
Yeah.
they shot him off. Namor pretty much fought the rest of the Illuminati, and then after that, he kind of split himself away.
Now,
So
it was that story with the Hulk and Civil War that just convinced me that Tony Stark and all the Illuminati were villains. I was just convinced they were.
Well, it sounds
So I
very. I
especially
mean,
Reed,
it
Reed
sounds
had
very
no
bullet.
heart. Reed had
mhm.
no heart in the Illuminati. He was like,
Well, then you
it was
read
like, well, we need to do this, and this, and Reed would be like, okay, give me like 3 days. I can figure out
mhm.
something. I'm
Or
like,
then you read
what? You have no
then you
reservation? He's
read
like, we just do it.
what was it, Hickman's Avengers? They mind wiped Captain America where he would forget all about him and him blowing up a planet with the Infinity Gauntlet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, wow. Yeah.
When
They
they start
brain
with,
bugged Captain America?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Oh man.
If you haven't read Jonathan Hickman's Avengers led into his version of Secret Wars, which was, and Marvel won't admit it, but it was their version of Crisis on Infinite Earths minus
Ah.
rebooting. And they found out that there were all these other Earths, which everybody knew, and for some reason they were merging in each other's universes. And if the two Earths merged together, they would explode and wipe out both universes. So the Illuminati figured out that if you can blow up the Earth of the other universe, you would save both universes. So they had Captain America use the Infinity Gauntlet to destroy an entire Earth full of people. And because it was from a different universe, it messed up the gems. I'm sorry, they're gems, not stones. I don't care what the movies say. Um, and he was upset about it. It's like, why did you make me do this? We could have found another way. They're like, Professor Xavier, and they wiped it all from his mind.
I
Dang.
mean,
And
Xavier just came there like, we had. It's like it was like he tried to reason. It was like it was a necessary evil, but there could have been another way. It could have been done. It's like he just Steve wouldn't let it go, and like, okay, I hate to do this to you, but wipe it.
Dang. That.
yeah, and now
Wow.
Hickman's
That's not the
Avengers and stuff.
Professor X I grew up with. That's
No.
not the
Well,
Professor X I grew up
they made Xavier in the Illuminati more like Niles Calder in Doom Patrol.
Mm-hmm.
with. Okay.
Yeah,
Because
like,
Niles
and what
Calder
was
in Doom Patrol is like, everything that he did had a different spin on what
mhm.
he was really going after.
And they
And he
in the
used
X-Men
every
books,
member of the Doom Patrol to his advantage, not to the best of their ability. He used them to his advantage. and he took
And
advantage of every last member.
yeah. And in the X-Men books, they just ran with that ball with Professor X, and it was like there was an entire other team of X-Men, and Cyclops and Havoc had another brother, and he erased all of it from their memories, and it's just like,
Well,
what
Hickman was
happened to the nice bald guy? Uh,
no, the nice ball guy was there, but Hickman was going back to it's like, what if Charles's evil side actually took over?
mm,
Because
yeah,
again, that's when the whole thing with World War Hulk and how
hmm
Hulk eventually got to Xavier and what ended up happening kind of changed my mind about, okay, maybe Charles is not as bad as what we think he is. It's like, because he literally explained to the Hulk, it's like, look, if I would have known that what we was going to do with you in space would have ended up the way that it did, meaning that the rocket never exploded in mid-space, you actually landed somewhere else, had a whole life, you were happy, and we destroyed it by accident because we had no clue. I understand. That's my bad. Don't take it out on my X-Men. Don't take it out on the rest of the world. I understand if you want the rest of the Illuminati, so be it.
mm,
Start with me.
Okay, that's the Charles Xavier I know. That's I grew up with a Charles Xavier who, if he made a decision and that decision turned out to be wrong, he owned it.
mm.
He owned it
Oh,
and
he
he
owned
faced,
every last
yeah, he
bit of
owned it and
that.
he faced and dealt with the consequences. You know.
He felt
That's
he
why.
felt he felt Hulk's pain
Mm,
because he did not realize that Hulk in that time frame lost a wife, lost one of his three sons,
mm,
and what's even worse, it was the baby.
Oh,
yeah,
you get Widow Hulk. You
Baby
get me.
Hulk,
Oh
They
man,
killed it. Yep,
I'm
they
a
killed.
Baby
mom.
Hulk.
You can't tell me stuff like that. Then
I'm
when
still
you
trying.
walk to New York and smack a Marvel person.
I'm still trying to understand the whole thing with Lyra, the She Hulk that nobody really talks about anymore.
Mm,
Okay, that's a She-Hulk I don't know.
I vaguely know.
Lyra,
I spent a lot of time without comics
okay.
because
Now,
I had babies and I had, very little money and kids were in special ed and going to counseling and there was no time for comics.
well,
And what comics I could get back then, I was buying children's books and children's comics and stuff like that.
well,
So there was a
to kind of make you happy, what I'm about to get ready to tell you happened in the mid 2000s. So
okay.
this is when you was like slowly getting back, but you wasn't that far, looking at the newer stuff.
Yeah.
This is more newer stuff. So Lyra is the actual daughter of Hulk and Tundra. So you know who Tundra is, right?
Yeah, but okay.
So again, they haven't really fleshed out the story. I haven't gone back to read the issues where Tundra and Hulk had a thing together. They end up consummating, and Lyra was born. So Lyra, because Tundra is technically from another
She's from another
Marvel
Marvel
Marvel Earth.
universe.
Yeah,
Mm,
Yeah.
no, not really. She's part of the
Well,
Marvel universe, but she's from a different Earth
she's from a
other than
different
six one
Earth.
six. Yes,
mm,
Yeah.
she's not from 616. She's pretty much from the original Earth that Tundra is from.
Okay, she's from Prime.
Right. So she was raised up on Prime, and from Prime and everything, but eventually she finally got to 616 Earth because she was coming to seek her father, because the only things that she know about her father was the messed up stuff that Tundra has told her.
Okay.
So eventually she did not really meet father, but she ended up meeting Jennifer.
mm,
Okay.
And once Jennifer realized who she was, Jennifer kind of took her up under the wing, or up under her wing. But out of all the Hulks, Lyra is the actual most dangerous one out of all of them, because it's like all Hulks have a weakness. You know, Hulk is angry. Hulk is angry. Hulk is stronger. But as he gets angrier, he loses rationality, or at least
Yeah.
so to say. Jennifer maintains her intelligence and maintains her strength, but she has a little bit, if I could say, of if I could say, megalomania applied to it, because she has that. She sometimes have inhibitions.
Okay.
Red Hulk has ego problems. Red She Hulk is, for lack of better terms, she has a inferiority complex against her normal self.
Okay.
She doesn't like her regular self. She
Well,
feels that it's like when Betty turns red, it's like, I'm only turning red because you, Betty, can't protect yourself.
Great Hulk was kind of like that against Banner. The whole knock him out so he can't be, if I gotta become Banner, knock his ass out so he can't do anything to interfere with what I'm doing.
That's what Joe Fixit would do. It's like Joe Fixit became his own persona. It's like, me be a scientist. I'm having too much fun being a gangster.
Yeah, this is,
Joe,
so in
it's
his
like
own way, he
Joe
kind of
Fixit
looked down.
never really turned back into Banner. He never.
No, he would just
He
knock
had a
himself.
mental lock on Banner. Banner
Yeah,
was
he would
locked away
knock
in his
him
mind.
out, and when he was in Banner form, he'd be out sleep. The few comics I ever read was him with Banner being, if he had to go Banner, it would be like, yeah, just knock his ass out.
Have you read the books? Have you read the comics where they talked about what actually goes on in Banner's brain
No,
when he turns?
no, no. There's there is a lot. They have so many of the books have fractured into, it wasn't just back when back in the okay, time to get in the old way back machine. Come on, boy. Come on, Peabody, operate the controls for mama.
You mean
um
Sherman? You mean Sherman?
no, Sherman is not housebroken. We don't let Sherman near the controls, because every
But that's
time
who Boy is.
we don't let Sherman near the controls. Peabody, he manages the controls. I tell him where to go. Sherman, we just try to keep him from pooping all over the floor because he ain't house trained. But anyway, back in the day, we're going way back to the old days of comic. It was one title per character. You didn't have the different X-Men that came out in the month. You had one. You had one Conan. You had one Superman. Superboy kind of broke out, splintered off, because there was the Superboy. Well, okay, Superman was like splintered because he had Superman, he had Superboy, and then there was the Legion of Superheroes, which is also Superboy.
Far
So
back are we going? Because Action Comics and Superman were both in the 1940s.
Well, that's what I was saying. But then again, it's like you had Superboy and Supergirl in Adventure Comics, which is also in the
Hmm.
40s too.
Yeah.
but it wasn't as complex.
Mm.
Okay,
Now each of
that's
the
the point that she's
characters are
making.
like this whole complex web of stories, and you have to keep track of what happens in one book may or may not connect in a whole other. It's not like, oh, this character appeared in this character's book and so the story continues there. It's like, no, this character did this and this in his book A, and then it continued in this book C, and then went to bed, and then book D picked it up, and then book A picked it back up, and then they blew it up in B. It's just I liked it when it was like, you didn't have 50 different books that came out for the character. It's just, to me, it's just a little exhausting.
So you hate so in other words, you hate this Batman era where there's like 50 billion Batman books.
You don't get me started, please. Don't get me started. I've been trying to be good. You just we gonna act like you didn't make. We gonna hold on, Peabody, rewind that. Thank you. Okay,
I
we didn't
mean,
have that conversation.
it wouldn't be that bad, and I'm going to use the Batman example, if it was like it used to be, where Detective Comics, he was actually a detective, and those were, if you wanted to read Batman the Detective, you read Detective Comics. If you wanted to read Batman more as a superhero, you read Batman. If you wanted to read Batman teaming up with whoever, you read Brave and the Bold. But somewhere along the lines, they said that's not going to work, and they made all of them Batman asshole. And so it doesn't work when it's the same character in every book. When it's different parts of the character, it's better. It's great if you have different books. Like I like Detective Batman way more than superhero Batman, but I like superhero Batman way more than I like Frank Miller asshole Batman we've had for the last 40 years. Um,
Don't get me started on the Frank Miller Batman. Thug body Batman. I call them all thick. Just it's like we need to set you up on a date with She-Hulk because just you know.
You have to do it with what? Not 616 She-Hulk. I forgot what Earth she's from. That's the more promiscuous one.
Oh,
The one that so-called slept with the Juggernaut. I was like, no, this did not happen. Yes, it did. It happened, but it turned out that it really wasn't the Jennifer from 616. It was one that escaped from her Earth, and the time variance was after her.
bits of my brain are leaking out into my headphones. Stop. Just
talking about promiscuous characters, I have to say that's one of the biggest letdowns with the rise of the movies. I miss Tigra in the Avengers.
Tiger. I liked Tigra, but I liked Tigra better when she was the cat.
Yes,
Mm.
Before she was Tigra, she was the cat. She was a private investigator.
Greer
Um,
Grant.
Yeah,
and I get why she became Tigra. There was a situation, I forgot exactly what it was, but she was dying, and the only way to save her was to do this thing where she became Tigra. Um, so I get it was to save her, but I really
It,
liked
it, it,
her as the cat because in some ways she was kind of like Batman in the point of it was less about superpowers and more about working out what's going on, and it was set here in Chicago. I thought it was really
yeah,
cool.
it
And
was it was set in Chicago, and like you said, the power was secondary because her
yes,
amulet, which gave her her agility and strength, was secondary to to her missions.
yeah, and the fact that if she had not been as intelligent and clever, it, the physical stuff wouldn't have worked because she had to think her way out of a lot of stuff. It wasn't just let me go in there and bang boom and beat up. She had to figure out what it was that was going on, and how part A went into part B, became C, and then smack Z in the butt. You know, I liked that about that character. I didn't get to read, like I said, when you're growing up and you've got all these other concerns. You get your comics when you can,
Mhm.
and there are a lot of and there are a lot of comics. There are months where it's like, okay, I can get a Conan this month because that's all I can afford. Or, ooh, I've got a little extra money. I can get Mad Magazine. Or, you know,
Mhm.
or finally I'm working. I got a job. Let me go check out heavy metal. And then it's like Marvel created Epic Illustrated, and then 1999 came out, and it was like I had a little more money, but I also had more responsibilities. So it was like this month I can maybe do this, and then I got to eat for these next couple of months and pull extra shifts. And I pulled extra shifts so I can get a comic. So
See, she was living like Peter Parker.
I
Mhm.
was I just couldn't crawl up walls.
Yep. It's
I couldn't crawl up walls.
it's sad that that series only went 5 issues. It's only went
Oh,
5 issues as heard as Greer Grant, like beware the claws of the cat.
Mhm.
yeah.
And then they introduced Tigra, and it's just for some reason the people love the character, they just couldn't get a actual title to stick.
Mhm.
And I mean, there are some characters who just, I don't know, some characters, and I guess for me, because I also grew up at a time where um, you'd have an issue that was short.
Mhm.
So, like, there were characters before Poison Ivy, there was Rose and Thorn, who were kind
Lois
of,
Lane's.
huh?
They were always in Lois Lane.
Yeah, you would catch a Rose.
Mhm.
If the story was short, you would catch a Rose and Thorn, or Zatanna actually. When she wasn't guest starring with Superman, occasionally at the end of a book, you would catch a Zatanna story.
Mhm.
They wouldn't give them full comics, but they would get like their own sort of short, and sometimes that short would carry into a few issues. Um,
Kind of
and
like
some
with Wonder
characters
Woman and
were kind of
Huntress.
best like that, huh?
Kind of like with Wonder Woman and Huntress.
Yeah,
Huntress
Mhm.
had a lot of a lot of short backstories in the late '70s, early '80s Wonder Woman before before George Perez rebooted it.
Mhm.
and she got
Yeah.
the suit back.
Mhm.
And it was Detective that had the Paul Kirk Manhunter stories in the back of it,
Right.
and Adventure had Airwave, which I actively hunt down now because I for some reason Airwave is one of those wacky characters I just like. So
You know,
yeah.
um, Speaking of how money gets earned, I am hoping my refund clears in the next couple of days because I was at Jewel and they actually had 2 issues of Mad's Spy versus Spy compilation still in the stand. So it's like, yes, I gotta go get that.
Race
I
against time.
because it used to be they used to put out like they used to have the old Reader's Digest size Archies like they would have a Jughead, they'd have Archie's Pals and Gals, the Archie's Jokes. They would have these Reader's Digest size Archie
Mhm.
books, and you could get them at the grocery store.
Mhm.
Um, and they weren't very expensive. So, every once in a while, my mom or a boyfriend might go, "Hey, Elaine likes comics. I'll get this," and that was the way to get it. But at the same time, that's also how, because they put them out in these Reader Digest sides, I learned who Captain Klutz was. The Captain Klutz book came out
Mhm.
in a Reader Digest side. They used to put out compilations of Spy versus Spy in a Reader Digest. You would have all these great Mad magazines, little books, and every once in a while, if I was lucky, somebody would go, "Oh, Elaine likes that stuff," and would get
Mhm.
me one. And then when my mom wanted to punish me, she would toss them away. My
That's
mother
very
threw
funny.
out my copy of Jean Grey Reborn as Phoenix. She threw out my copy of The Death of Gwen Stacy.
Ouch.
Okay. And as much as they hurt then to hurt, now, because those are just, you can't get those now.
You could get them, but you're going to pay
It'll
with arm
cost
or
you,
lead. Yeah.
you either have to pick up a really crappy copy or it will cost you. And the copy you got me is really decent.
Hmm.
It's
Of
decent.
the Havoc one, yeah. That it's like I will get books like that from time to time, anywhere between $5 to $10. So that's why I don't really trip too much about. It's like, oh, it's like I really want that. It's like, okay, here you go. Here you go. It's like, what do you mean? Here you go. It's like that's like my third one that I came across.
Well, before I forget, because it's now 8:17, I'm going to hurry
Hmm.
up and get this out of the way so you guys can talk about the more heavy, deep, and real stuff.
No, okay, I do have a little bit of a review, and this is going to be of an independent comic that is not mine.
Okay. No rants tonight?
It may be a little bit a little ranty because it is a first issue, and you know how I am about first issues.
Okay. Okay. So this Fantastic Four, the title of this is The Naked Truth. It's a John Byrne book. There are a couple of copies available on Amazon, print copies, for 19.99 plus 4.99 shipping. So just so you know. Um, and if Joe hadn't got me this, I would have probably had to, go beat up some thug boys so I could get the money to get this
No,
book.
she would find a way to probably do me like a Suge Knight and hold me out over a balcony. And it's like, give me one of your 8 copies of that book.
No, I okay. I'd have probably dragged him up to the Sears Tower. Yeah, but it'll always be the Sears Tower. It's never gonna be Willis. I love this story. One of the things I loved about the art in this, considering what this is about, um, is that the artist doesn't start it with, her booty cheeks ain't hanging out, her shorts aren't up her butt crack. Um, it's she's on a rooftop by herself, just chilling out, enjoying a little sun. She ain't hurting nobody. She ain't making life hard for nobody. And what happens? Two idiots in a helicopter. She's trying to do her thing, and they show up and start making her day difficult. Okay? So this dude can snap some pics of her in the nudie. And I have to also, this book is fun because it also has some of those great old comic book ads, like Oreos everywhere. This book was full of this stuff. I'm sorry. Anyway, back to our show. Jennifer ends up hanging off a helicopter. They are flying around with She-Hulk on the helicopter. And while she's doing that, she was supposed to have a date. And his name is Wyatt Wingfoot. He was supposed to be chief of a Native American tribe, but after a situation, he ended up staying in New York and working with the Fantastic Four. He sees the helicopter out there. There's Jen. There's a little bitty helicopter up there. He's like, oh my God, let me go see what's happening to my girl. Because I guess they were going, he was coming up there to see her. So we can make our own, decisions about what they were trying. Um, but I like it because this is a fun one. There's action in it. Poor Jen, She-Hulk Jen. I call her Jen sometimes. She smashed through a window. Just thinking, you're sitting there, you're just getting through your day, and then this big old green chick just goes wham through your window. You know, do you think they'll give you time off that? And for those who don't know, Spidey likes to fish with kids because that's just who he is. Anyway, the helicopter shakes her. Wyatt catches up. The minute Wyatt catches up, she's like, we gotta go catch that helicopter because I need to kick somebody's butt. Um, Fast forward, Jen realizes that they've taken pictures. The people who've taken it, she has to find out exactly who these people are. Why do they want her picture? Um, she finds out, and because, she's a lawyer, she knows how to investigate. She got a brain and all that. She finds out who had the helicopter. He don't want to tell her what she wants to know, which is a stupid thing. You know, some 7-foot green chick come and ask me some questions. I'm gonna tell you everything you want to know. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna play anything. So what does she do? But you got a helicopter. What if I throw this thing to 100 to 300 feet in the air, straight up? What would it land like? So when he realizes, oh, this gonna hurt me personally in more ways than one, he tells her who the helicopter was. Now, also in this issue, and I forgot this part. My brain blacked it out. Alicia, the blind chick, who at
Hmm.
one point had been, dating Ben. Um, she and Johnny, you know, found chicken, wow, and which kind of, was I remember at the time it was like I looked now in the old way back Peabody and I went back and he was like, yeah, you were kind of upset about that because you thought she was, I don't know what happened, but it just kind of shook
We
me.
Can I
we will keep our lips stiff.
can
Thank
I
you.
tell her,
It's
please?
more to that story. It's more to that story than what people realize.
Okay,
Please, can I tell her?
when I'm done, you can tell me all about it. Um, what I liked about this is she finds out that these pictures of her have been taken. This whole her afternoon has been screwed, so that this guy could get some topless photos of her for his nudie magazine. And she decides, okay, I get She-Hulk in this, but maybe that's not the way to do it. I will go in as an attorney, try to talk to him, appeal to his better nature, get these pics. Only problem is this dude ain't got no better nature. He's a sleaze. He's a sleaze of the first attitude, of the first magnitude. And if you want to alien eye, talk to Marvel. Maybe they can still find you one. But when she realizes that, and because he doesn't know that in her gen form that he's actually talking to the She-Hulk, he thinks he's just, you know, bad mouthing some lady lawyer because he has no respect for women. This dude. But then when you consider what he does for a living, and he goes so far as to show her what a badass he is. He shows he's got the negatives and he puts them in his safe. Like, you can't do nothing to me. I'm gonna put these in my safe. You can't get them out my safe because you ain't She-Hulk. Who you gonna scare? Unfortunately for him, oh come on, do not fight me. We talked about Transformers. They had transbots. I thought that was really cute. Anyway, what happens is she's like, you don't want to make me angry. You won't like me when I'm angry, but you want to make me angry, so I'm gonna get angry. And she changes and blows off his toupee. And he goes from douchebag thingy to little weak. Oh, don't hurt me, Miss She-Hulk. Oh, please, no. You can't do that to me. I'm just a little man. And because, as we said, Jen gets angry, but Jen doesn't get stupid. So Jen decides, tell you what, you've got this big old safe. This safe is full of money. Somebody could come here and steal your safe. I need to make your safe safer. So what does she do? She hulks the safe. She crunches that safe good to the point where it's about the size of a large basketball. And she gives it back to him. And he stupidly takes it, not thinking that, hello, it's still the safe. He couldn't have lifted it even before she crunched it up. You know? Which means he can't, he's already rushed the film out, but he'll never have that money and he'll never use those negatives again. However, Jen is smart enough to realize that the book is out there. It's got, the photos are done. It's going to come out. Wyatt tells her, you won. She's like, kind of, but, He can't use these again, but at the same time, the damage is done. I'm going to have to accept and deal with this because, she's the Hulk, but she ain't going to smash unless she absolutely has to. Um, so we go a little in time. We come upon Looky, look at him, he's so cute.
Little Franklin. Yep,
Little
little
Frankie,
Franklin.
he's so cute. I guess they had gone through something because Reed and Sue are having something of a tense discussion, and Arjun, she's sad. And she's explaining, well, he won't do it again, but he's done it. So, but in at that point comes Johnny Storm. And guess what Johnny Storm has in his hot little hand? See what I did there? Okay, stop that, Peabody. Don't make me hurt you. Sherman. Anyway, they produced the book. Unfortunately, in the rush to get this book to print, dude didn't tell them, hey, she's green. So when they were dealing with the negative, they thought maybe the negative was out. It just turned her into a white chick with brown hair. And best part, they had nothing there was nothing in the photos for size reference. So nobody gets this was She-Hulk topless. So yay. Except, as I mentioned, she and Johnny have kind of a big sis little brother thing. Because she's like, oh, wow, wait, there's nothing. They don't know it's me. They just think he got some chick on a rooftop. They don't realize it was Super Hulk and it looks like just some white chick. Yay! And she's so happy. Johnny goes, hey, can you let me have that magazine again? And she goes, yeah, sure. Not thinking, he goes, I got these green glasses in my room. I'm going to check these pictures out. At which point she realizes, holy crap, you idiot. And of course, that's how we end. He flames
Again,
on,
the same
and
thing
she
that he
goes,
would do to Ben. It's the same thing that
it,
would have done to Ben if Ben was in a similar situation.
I'm not sure if naked pictures have been so much, even as the thing, come see the thing. It's just, I'm sorry.
You don't want me to get started, because I could make an argument for it.
Okay, I'm not gonna go there, but especially you don't want me to talk about, Jester's painting the dust of deliciousness and the traveler.
I think we almost got in trouble the last time we talked about akin to where I was going to go with it.
Yes, I think we did. But I love this book. It, I after all the angerness today, it's like, you know what? I need to reread this book because I can't do it on the show until I've had time to sit down and read it. And I read it, and I was looking at all those goofy old ads. I used to think sea monkeys were real. Okay, yes, I was one of those stupid children. I thought sea monkeys were real.
Technically,
You
they
mean they're
were
not?
real. They were brine shrimp.
You know what? I was stupid as a 7-year-old. So, from 7 to like 10, I would see the sea monkey ads, and they would have the drawings of them. Like they would be, the sea monkey mom and dad and little sea monkey kids in a stroller. And you would think, okay, it's not exactly like that, but you would have little sea monkey colonies and whatnot. And I believed it, and I wanted to believe it. And, then this guy, I forgot what show it was, but he had gotten the sea monkey thing and ordered it and put it in the water and goes, yeah, see, it's not. And it was like, you broke my heart, Mr. Man, because it wasn't nice. It was so yeah, my heart breaks for sea monkeys. But this, some of those ads were insane. Spider-Man sitting there fishing on the water. I'm just, as if you could just go to New York and go to the dock and Spider-Man be sitting there. Hey, you want to come fishing with me? It's just,
I miss the Hostess fruit pie ads that were
The
in the
whole
books.
boy.
I loved it. I think that was the only Oreo cookie one that I remember, but I loved it. I love those old ads. They give me as much joy as the books themselves. They become part, especially as someone who, I was a child when this was being put out. So this, well, actually, this is like what, 1985. I was 24. But still, it just it gives you that kind of, it gives you that nostalgic warmth.
Hostess fruit pie.
My timeline's a little off in Fantastic Four. This was when right after Secret Wars and Ben was still on Battle World, or was he human then?
No,
Why he wasn't there?
no. This is during a time where he had his own book.
Oh, okay.
And he was like, like I forgot what actually happened between him and Reed. It was at the end of, it was after Secret Wars, but him and Ben was not seeing eye. Reed and Ben was not seeing eye to eye anymore.
Which Secret Wars? Because there were several.
The first
one, the very first one, the first 12 issues.
I remember for a time his book was based on what was left of Battle World, but I can't remember the time frame of all of it.
No, towards the tail end. Towards the tail end, when he first got back from Battle World, he was like, okay, I'm going to go back and this, that, and the other. And he and Reed got into like some type of weird argument about something dealing with the team. And he's like, look, I had enough. Instead of trying to beat you down to a pulp, let me just walk away for a bit. Okay. I'm not going to leave the team empty-handed. So that's the reason why he went to go grab She-Hulk. It's like, She-Hulk is going to replace me, but I need time away from you. I need time away from all of this because you guys don't understand what I've been through. You don't understand this, and then now you're up here telling me about, the whole thing. Well, now we could talk about Elisa.
Can I tell her?
Yes, you could tell her because I know you've been waiting. You've been waiting.
That's not Alicia. That's a Skrull.
That's not the true Elisa Masters, because the true Elisa Masters still was in love with Ben, but she.
I was about to say, I remember I can't remember what issue, but Ben was always sort of like, who could ever love me, and I remember they were walking down the street. I can't remember what street in New York because, I'm not a New Yorker, but they were walking down the street and they were having, I can't remember if they were walking in the street or she was, because Alicia was also an artist.
Mm-hmm.
She sculpted and painted.
And you know who her father was, right? Her father was the puppet master.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. But I remember her having, they had these discussions a couple of times because Ben would get depressed. What woman in a right man would want me, and you only want me because you can't see, and she was like, hello, you're an idiot. And she would have to go through this whole thing about what it was about, who he was, as opposed to what he was that she was in love with, and
the whole Skrull thing.
I want an Alicia.
The whole Skrull thing wasn't revealed until like years and years later. It was at the time where if they didn't know how to get out of a story, it was either a Skrull or a Doombot. So
oh god.
So yeah, she was a Skrull.
Great.
Well, she was the Lisa that was in love with Johnny was a Skrull. And the way that they tried to explain it was that Elisa went out of the country or something. It was just so convenient that
she just happened to not
took
be
place
there.
in such a time frame where Elisa was out of the city or something to that magnitude and never came back until much later.
I need
very
my
good.
comfort bird. Okay,
Yeah.
I need my comfort bird skeleton.
Hmm.
Sometimes I need that.
But
You know.
it's just funny because it's just like, the whole thing about their romance with Ben, and then all of a sudden it was just like she
Mhm.
just dropped Ben like a hot potato and went to Johnny.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it turned out it was just not any scrolls. She was some type of scroll princess. It was like
Mhm.
Johnny fell in love with her. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Is she the one that she and the Queen Scroll dies on the home world when Galactus eats the planet?
Mm-mm.
And at the
No, this
time, we were like, oh my God, they actually drew a beautiful scroll. She was a
she
hot,
was yeah,
beautiful scroll.
she was a different hot scroll because she stuck around for a little while after
Hmm.
they revealed it. And I want to say she got Heroes Reborn because I don't remember seeing her after the onslaught. Oh, I may have my time frame wrong, but she was
I
around
know.
for a
Actually,
long
you
time.
might be right. You might be right because you,
Mhm.
you might be right because I was like, was she around after Onslaught? I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't, but yeah, she was around for a long time. Yeah, her name was like Lyra or something. Also, she had a strange L word name.
Leland, no, not Leland. I'm thinking now. Got me thinking X Men. Lelandra is X Men, but it was something like that,
Lilandra of the Shi'ar.
right?
Yes,
She is the Empress Shi'ar.
yes, yeah, it was something like that. I don't remember it now, but yeah, she was a scroll.
I love me some Lilandra.
Hmm.
I
She's
I
dead
hated
too
her.
now, isn't she?
You have
In
to
the
do
X-Men?
this to me. You can't have done this in
I
private
don't. I
in the
don't
group.
remember. I
You
don't
know,
remember everything because Original Sin did a lot of BS
Mhm.
to undo a lot of things here.
Yeah, isn't Cyclops' brother still the Emperor of the Shi'ar though?
I think so.
Vulcan. Yeah. Okay.
oh, so it's not the crazy sister
Uh-uh.
that is running the Shi'ar.
Mm-mm.
Okay,
No, it's the secret.
Death Bird is
Deathbird.
dead. Death
Yeah,
Bird is deader than a doornail.
it's the
Dang.
secret brother of Alex and Scott that no one knew about except Professor X.
Except for Professor
But
X
what
and
about
Corsair. And
Papa?
Corsair.
Because
Mhm.
Allison Scott's dad was running the Starjammers.
Corsair,
Mhm.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Alex and it was Corsair of the Starjammers. So it's like, okay, did he mess with his brain too?
Mhm.
Mm-mm.
Okay,
Mhm.
so he knew obviously that there was
And just never
another.
told him.
It's just never, again, why would he? Why would he? It's like, why he's going to tell him, it's like, hey, you got another brother over here.
Yeah.
It was kind of.
I was never close to you in the first place because why I was gallivanting the stars and everything. And then
I left y'all. I left
who would
y'all
be more
alone.
proud? Who would be more proud of having somebody that was technically up and comer in the Imperial Guard in the Shi'ar? Because that's the way that they played it. I believe before he became emperor, he was a up and
Well,
coming.
he was part of before the new X-Men with Storm and Wolverine who saved the original team from Krakoa. There was the secret team that had Vulcan, who's Alex and Scott's brother, and a bunch of no-name characters that all died, and Professor X erased everybody's memories about them. But
Yeah.
somehow the brother survived, and I just remember for the years there was a whole thing about there's a third Summers brother. Who is it? And people thought it was Gambit, and then it was like Adam X was the brother, and then it turned out no, it's this guy no one ever heard of that's been around since 1963. So there
Hmm.
you go.
Great.
Yeah.
They broke my heart when the what's his brother and what's her name, green hair chickie,
Polaris.
Polaris. Polaris.
Polaris, when they broke up, that broke my heart because for the longest time they were like solid. They had seen each other through thick and thin. They were
Mhm.
one of those couples, and I love them because they they balanced each other so very well. and they had a thing. I can't remember the issue. And hold on. Yeah, set the Wayback Machine for that one. Thank you. Um, we they it was one of those things where somebody had caught them and is doing a little mind buggery
Mhm.
and was sort of reaching it into everybody's deepest fear. It was like he was making them undone by reaching into their deepest fear and exposing them and making them crazy. And he couldn't do that to Polaris and Alex because
Mhm.
it was like, oh, okay, you two out of, in some ways you're like you are truly have each half of a whole.
Mhm.
You're like solid. I can't break y'all apart. And it was because of that connection that they had that you know they were able to overcome him, and it was like, oh, good. That's a relationship I want. Something where
Yeah.
we solid. We gonna whoop some butt. But
Next to next to Rachel Summers, Alex Summers is my favorite X character because he's a tryhard.
yeah,
He was always, oh, well, you're Scott's brother.
you're
And
Scott's little brother. It
and
wasn't just that he was
coming from
Scott's brother; he was Scott's little brother.
yeah, and
Who was
I
more
always
powerful than
liked the
Scott?
fact that
Who
Yeah,
and I always liked the fact that Alex was like, you know what? I got to do something about this. And I always felt bad for him because of that. Yes. And yeah, I always had a soft spot for Alex, and I always liked him and Polaris. And in my head canon, because I quit reading X-Men comics, they're still happily together and are married and have like a dozen kids. And him and Scott fixed all their problems in therapy, and they all go with Mary Jane and Peter, who are still married, to take the kids out to the park. And that's the Marvel universe I remember, and that's where it's staying.
I it had
I
to be
wish I
about
could live in that Marvel universe,
10
but I
years
can't.
or so ago. I'd seen a comic, somebody had it and I was looking through it, and Polaris was like, madder than a hatter.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, no, you did not do that to my girl. You did not just turn her into, I'm I might as well be Jason and Freddie's love child. It just I was and then and he had gotten another girl, and
Mm-hmm.
Polaris was all, I'm like, can we drop a building on this other chick? Because I don't get what this is all. I was like, okay, I am done.
Well,
I
then
need to take a break from the X titles because y'all didn't just shot me.
and then they finally revealed she really was Magneto's daughter, and I was like, you couldn't just let her be her own character. We have to tie her into someone else. And then Alex ended up with Madeline Pryor for a little while, and it's like, what, you're getting your big brother's hand me down.
You went to the Gene clone.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Madeline was Gene's clone.
Mm-hmm.
mhm.
Madeline was Gene's clone. So he went to the Gene clone. Oh my God, that just doesn't
No,
even
not
sound
willingly.
right.
Not willingly. That's the reason why this is the reason why, in your happy little universes, I wish I was there, but I gotta know the truth. And in my universe, it's like blame Magnus, because Magnus did the worst thing that he could ever do to Polaris. He kept denying her and denying her and denying her, and when the truth finally came out,
It it
it was all
it,
she, it was all she
it
wrote.
made her screw her. But the
Yeah,
thing is he had
it's
already there was already Scarlet Witch and Pietro.
Well, no, this was around that time when they weren't his kids anymore.
right. It was like
Because
it was. How can I
I
explain
have
this?
a headache now. Okay?
It's
This
weird.
part of my brain is now leaking into this side of my headphones. You
it's when
you have hurt me now.
It's weird because technically those three individuals are brother and sister, but they're half brother and sister because they got different mothers.
No.
and
Pietro Wanda and Pietro are brother and sister. They had the same mother. They grew up together.
So does Polaris. They're
They all
all
have the
three of their
same
fathers
mother.
is Magnus. all three of their fathers are Magnus, but they're step brothers and sisters because Pietro and Wanda had one mother.
and Polaris
Polaris had a
had
different one.
another. But what I'm saying is, it just doesn't make sense for him to deny her because he already had Wanda and Pietro.
Well,
Go in and I mean, he got as much booty as Charles did?
Probably more.
yes,
Probably
yes,
more.
Hey,
but
Charles
Well,
was
probably
getting
more.
his
But again,
Charles was getting
the
his
fact that
booty in
there
the
was a
Galactic.
the fact that there was a Maury Povich, you are the father,
mhm,
and that just messed with her because of the simple fact that it's like she for the longest was the closest thing to him when it comes to
mhm,
power. His
mhm,
power did not affect her at all. And she was up here, it's like, she was like, the last time I've seen something similar to this is with Scott and Alex. So she was used to it. So it's like, if your power does not affect me, and we both pretty much, have the same type of ability, we're related. No, we're
mhm.
not. I bill myself as your daughter because of this.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
was about to say she was always. I remember that building. It feels this feels so steep. This feels so Speed Racer X. Are you my older brother Rex?
It's
It feels
it's
so much like that.
it's what's the guy's name? They all got Ike Paul Perlmutter or whatever his name is, the owner of Marvel now,
Oh,
because when Wanda and Pietro were no longer mutants, because if they were mutants, they couldn't be in the Avengers movies. They weren't Magneto's kids anymore, but
yeah.
Well,
And that was
Magneto still
that
something
needed
that
to
that I have
train.
to
bothered me.
that
That
I
was
have to
some
put that.
that
Go
was
ahead.
something that bothered me in the movies,
Hmm.
because it's like you just kind of the, the way they retcon certain individuals, you know,
Well,
and
they had to do it because, from the way I understood it, if they were a mutant, Fox got to keep them. That's why the Beast couldn't be in the Avengers, and all the other characters that were mutants, because mutants were X-Men, but they wanted Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver,
well,
so they
not
weren't
all
mutants. And
mutants were X-Men because the Morlocks were mutants and they weren't X-Men. They were
it all has to
X-Men
do
But
with
but
early.
the thing about it
the
is
right.
it's the canon
They
and
were
the
okay.
IP.
Yeah.
And this is the messed up thing, and this is why I get so mad at MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Mhm.
They could have kept them as mutants in the cinematic universe because why? The Avengers comic books had them as mutants. When they were members of the Avengers, they were the first mutants to be a part of the Avengers.
Yeah, they were the first mutants allowed in.
And they couldn't say that they were mutants because why? Fox technically still had the rights to
Mhm.
X-Men and anything that was mutant related. It wasn't until after they did the Avengers that they acquired Fox,
Mhm.
and now they could say, well, they're mutants, but that train has
It,
already
Yeah, I was about to say
sailed
that train
because
and
they
left the station and
retconned
burned
it
it
for the
down.
cinematic universe. They already
and that's why,
retconned
like, that's why Doctor Doom never showed up in the cinematic universe until now, because he was a Fantastic Four character, and that was with
Fox.
Fox or
That
some,
was
yeah,
us.
Fox.
That was Fox. Fox.
Yeah.
In fact, it was because of Fox, and then what? And it kills me that they never give the Blade series the respect that it deserves, because the Blade series proved two things: A, that there was an audience for Marvel movies, and B, that a black character could carry a black character in the Marvel universe could carry some films. Okay, we can say what we want about the third Blade. I agree. It you know. Um, but he Wesley Snipes at least, and he actually kind of built himself with those Blade films. He started building himself into something of a powerhouse because of that. Um, and they'll talk about, oh, well, what Fox did with the mutant films or the Fantastic Four, and they kind of act like Blade is some other creature, and it's like, no, Blade is a Marvel character.
Mm-hmm.
And at a time when people weren't certain of it, they were taking his chance on a lesser known Marvel character. They got up and proved, yeah, if you do it right, you can get movies out of this. And
Mm-hmm.
I keep thinking Snipes didn't, I like the fact that in the last Wolverine Deadpool, they included him in that. It was like, okay, give the brother his props because he did. Those movies helped keep Marvel in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so and I keep thinking he should have gotten more respect for that.
If it wasn't for Blade, we would have never got Sam Raimi in Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Yep.
we wouldn't have
Because
got the
we got Sam
Spider-Man.
Raimi in Spider-Man, we then end up getting all of these other subpar movies, such as Elektra, which could have been a lot better if they would have had a better script.
And
Catwoman, which was just
and somebody other than Jennifer Garner. Can we just admit that
well,
she really wasn't the Elektra. The Elektra is Greek.
yes,
Okay, Elektra is Greek. We needed it was like that woman playing Storm. If you're gonna play Storm, put in the damn contacts. You don't want to do the contacts, go play somebody other than Storm without screwing up Catwoman on top of it.
again, we need an Emmy Award winner. We're going to get the Emmy Award winner who won an award for being a hoe in a movie.
Yeah.
I was like, out of all movies that she could have won an Oscar for, why Monstrous Ball?
Because she showed her tits. Yeah.
I mean,
Let's be
that's the
honest.
same. That's the same thing that I feel about Denzel Washington. It's like he couldn't get an Oscar for John Q, but he got an Oscar for Training Day.
Because he
He
had to play.
did?
Yeah.
Yes,
King Kong ain't got nothing on me. Can I get an Oscar now?
yeah, he got an Oscar for playing the villain and not the hero, and that what pisses me off so much about that. It's like John Q was so much of a better, impactful movie, but he gets it for
Playing
being
the
the
heavy.
villain.
Playing the heavy. But yeah, I just, like I said, I think Snipes should have gotten more respect because I'm watching things on YouTube and they'll talk about the Spider-Mans. And it's like, yeah, but go back and talk about how if it wasn't for Blade, nobody else would have had the thought of, oh, maybe we can do this.
If it wasn't for Blade, we would not have gotten more superhero movies beyond the first Burton Batman.
Now, hey, you guys need to put more respect on Dolph Lundgren's Punisher. Okay?
I
Sorry.
would put respect. I would put respect.
Just
I would put respect on Punisher only
come
because
here,
of Blue
Bert.
Gossip Jr.,
Yes.
but not because of Dolph Lundgren. And if we're
I'm
going to go
sorry. I
there,
just
if we're going to go there, then we need to put respect on the 1990s Fantastic Four movie, all because of Mo Man. That guy played Mo Man.
Yes.
But other than that, it's like the Doom was bad, Reed was bad. Mo Man, they got correct. They did a good job, but he wasn't the main heavy, and that's what made the movie suck.
but yeah.
Must we go even further than that?
No, because then we'll have to start talking about ABC doing superhero stuff, and we
Oh,
don't want to go.
I was going to go to NBC and the death of the Incredible Hulk and how the ending to that was just like, no,
You mean the final Incredible Hulk episode? That was CBS.
no. the
the
NBC
TV movie.
The Death of the Incredible Hulk.
I missed that one.
Oh, okay. I won't
He
say
fell
much
out of an
more.
airplane.
I won't say much more. Watch it because the very end is still
Fell
questionable.
out of an airplane.
Mhm.
Okay, I had to make. Okay, no, I need my bird back.
Yeah, he
But
fell
hey,
out of an airplane not as Banner, but as the Hulk.
And died.
Yep.
And we supposed to believe that.
Mhm. Or hey, let's go a step further.
No, I need.
David
that.
Hasselhoff is Nick Fury.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think I need Mozart for this. I need my. I need my comfort Mozart.
But again, this was during the days where there's like, oh, we need name brand power. So who can we have? Oh, we got David Hasselhoff. He could play a convincing Nick Fury. No, he can't.
No, no,
No,
especially
he
not
can't.
with NBC. No. Oh no,
Just
no.
like the backdoor pilot that they tried to do with Thor.
Mhm.
I don't
Did
think
you know
I.
that? Did you know the trial of the Incredible Hulk was a backdoor pilot for a Thor TV series?
No, I
Yep.
didn't.
And
No.
it had Daredevil in it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but NBC was the kiss of death for sci-fi. Um, in many ways on television, on network television, because and it was sad because they had put out a few decent miniseries.
Manimal for one.
You
Yes.
know, I had um, I had liked the Tenth Kingdom. They had a few miniseries that I mean, if you go further back, they had some great old miniseries that they had done. Um, but it was. I think I pointed this out before. NBC, it was like, and they did this with Star Trek, starting with Star Trek. They, when Star Trek got brought back on the air, they started messing around more with the formula. The suits started making demands of the production. You got to have more chicks of the week. You got to have more of this. And it's like, and Roddenberry's like, yeah, but what does that do to move the story? And there was that constant battle between how is that moving the story? And then you have the Shatner Nimoy thing. Because it's like if Nimoy got something, Shatner wanted it too, and if Shatner got something, their egos.
Mm-hmm.
There are all these different things that kind of the show kind of imploded on itself. But NBC, they would get decent shows. Powers of Matthew Starr in its
That's
first
the one
season.
that I was thought about that they killed it too quickly
They
because
killed it.
the suit got involved with it too much.
Yeah, but they also did that to Man from Atlantis. They screwed around with Man from Atlantis, and it started out really interesting. It had some heart and soul to it, and then they decided to suddenly let the suits get involved, and they started taking it in these weird directions that it didn't need to go. Sea Hunt. Or Sequest, no, Sequest.
It was Sequest, yeah.
Sequest, Sequest was going decently, and then they screwed Sequest. It was like, Buck Rogers. Yeah, it was kitschy and silly, but it had something. People liked it, and then the suits got involved, and it started getting. It was stupid
really
fun that became a headache,
Mm-hmm.
and you just kind of, people were like, okay, done. It was like, what killed Wonder Woman? Because the suits of CBS was like, well, they have those joy thingies. We need to have that with your show, and then bring her, And it's like, I didn't mind them bringing her into the modern age, but then she had to have this computer, and it was like, but they have that on Buck Rogers, and it's like, no, you don't need it. Just respect the respect the source material.
You already messed it up when you said that Steve Trevor is no longer the same Steve Trevor. It's this great grandson. We brought her into the future. Like, yeah, you're gonna have Wagner play the same character, but it's now the great grandson who has to have the same.
So at some point he dumps her, and
Hmm.
then goes off to someone else, and then she ends up having a relationship with his great great grandson. It's like, okay, yeah, y'all are getting into some weird, you know. Look, we were lucky that Bill Bixby had enough power that he could keep the suits at bay for most of the Incredible Hulk.
Hmm. And
He had it,
NBC brought it back up with those movies, and it had a second life.
Hmm.
but it was at least with the CBS series, he was able to use his particular power to keep the suits at bay and make a series that he felt proud of. He could be a headache, but he knew how to make a good series. Um,
That's
you
what that's
know,
why I get so messed up about Manimal. Manimal on NBC had life, but the suits got into it too much because
well,
they just didn't want the magician that could change into animals and was solving crimes. They were trying to add all of this nonsensical stuff to it.
it's like Galactica. If you think about the original Battlestar Galactica, it was it had a good formula. You had a great group of people. I loved that series.
Until they got to Earth.
Until suddenly Galactica 1980.
Hmm.
And then it went so far
When they
off
got
the
to Earth and they
it,
finally came across with the Earthlings.
it was like, no. That was the one thing I loved about Sci-Fi Channel when they decided to reboot it.
I
And
didn't like
they've made some
Sci-Fi Channel
mistakes, but
Galactica.
their Galactica was so much not. I mean, on the one hand, there were things about their Galactica you can see where they were talking. It referenced the original series, and I love that. But at the same time, their production team was like, "This is where we're going. This is the journey. Come with us on this journey. We might get to Earth, but it ain't gonna be the way Dave did it. This is a whole new Galactica. This is a whole new thing. And for the time, it was the Galactica for the time.
To me, it was a whole different Galactica altogether because the Cylon threat was completely different. It was
It
not the same. It was not the same. It was more along the lines of, are we at war with ourselves, or are we at war with really a different entity? And they could not determine the difference. Getting to Earth didn't matter at that point. They
Yeah,
need to figure
because
out
the
what was
real
going on
battle.
internally with them.
Yeah, and I like that. That you could see in the original series there was a little of that, but they weren't for the time they were making it. They weren't going to make that type of leap. That the that the Cylons got religion, and that they could make Cylons that were almost indistinguishable from humans. They weren't going there. But the fact of some of the seeds for that were already in the ABC series. You had Cylons, especially in the Cylon leadership, while they didn't have these discussions of religion, they were kind of working out as what makes you human.
Well,
And
I
the
thought
fact
it was
that you
more
had
about heretics more so than what
and,
makes you
and,
human.
and but also, you saw in the Cylon leadership, not the foot soldiers, but in the advanced
Hmm.
androids, you got some of those discussions about the attitudes of what it was to be human, and you could see they were kind of putting that. I think if they had followed on, we may have seen something a little like that, because you could see in some ways the upper echelon Cylons in many ways were more human in the point, and especially in regards to um, the gameplay. They unlike the Cylon foot soldiers, the upper echelons were all kind of vying for position. It was very human thing. It wasn't very logical. It was sort of this very emotional. Each one wanted to be top dog. And
Mhm.
if this one could make this deal with this human to get what he needed or it needed, you could and it was interesting. They used what's his name from Lost in Space is one of the upper echelon Cylons. The guy who played Dr. Smith
Oh, what
voiced.
Jonathan something.
Yeah, he voiced one of the early upper echelon Cylons. And I thought that was really interesting when you think about how Dr. Smith was originally, as opposed to
Dr.
who
Smith was
he
treacherous
became. Oh
in,
yeah,
in season one. He was
and
treacherous in
he
season
was
one
very
as a
treacherous.
true saboteur, but
And
they
then audiences are like, okay, they don't really like that Dr. Smith, so we're going to make him more of a lazy, bumbling type of incompetent dude. But I noticed when I think about those episodes, it's like, okay, he's playing more the original Dr. Smith when he's voicing his character. This is more, he is calculating. He is playing all the angles, you know. He knows that this human, I'm gonna play you until I get what I want from you, and then you're pretty much dead, but I'm gonna let you think that there's a place for you at the top of this. And it's like, no, there's not, because we're going to eradicate humanity, which means you go die too. But I'm going to let you think that we'll let some of humanity survive and you'll get to rule if it means I get ultimately what I want. You can see that within the Cylon High Command, that sort of each one trying to outmaneuver the other. While the lesser Cylons are very much by your command, these guys are, they are much closer to humanity in regards to their personalities and their functions.
okay.
And when I think about the later series, I keep thinking those guys saw that and said, "Hey, why don't we run?" Because if you think about it, they kind of ran it in a way from the Cylon POV. Yes, they focus on a lot of humans, but there's a lot of it that is based on Cylon POV and how the Cylons think and feel about all this, how this affects them.
Well, I also saw evolution because remember they went from being robotic and android to human in a lot of
Yes.
ways. They figure out a way to reproduce in a into a human body, and that what made new Battlestar interesting when they
Yeah.
start infiltrating. When they start infiltrating the remnants of the colonials. It was like, oh, this is not good for the colonials because now they can't tell if you really are human or really are Cylon. Because before it's like, yeah, as an android or robot, you had giveaways that they could use, but as they kept evolving, it's like, oh.
I love the psychology of that series, but you could see the beginnings of it. What I'm saying is you can see the beginnings of it in the old series. And I just realized what time it was and I killed the show.
No. Because we got the review in, we got a review in, we got a lot of other things. And the only other thing I wanted to bring up, since you brought up Dr. Smith, and this is kind of like a factoid that most people probably don't know. Most people don't realize there was also a pilot for a Lost in Space cartoon series where he was the only individual from the original TV series to voice an actual character, and the voice of that character was Dr. Smith, who
Oh,
actually had kind of like a commanding presence in that
okay.
TV pilot for
They
the
didn't
animated
bring
series.
back Bill Mooney?
Hmm?
They didn't
Nope.
bring back,
No,
okay.
no, no, no. No. The Robinson family was gone. There was no Robinson
Oh,
family. It was a
okay.
whole different crew.
Okay.
Dr. Smith was kind of like the overall commanding officer. He was technically the highest person in rank that was there, but yet he wasn't the one in command.
Oh, okay.
He was
Because he'd
there
been with
only
the
in an
original.
advisory capacity, but he was the one that, if worst comes to worst, if he sent a bad report back to command, the crew was in trouble.
Got it.
But they had the original Dr. Smith voice that character, and it was just like it worked. It kind of worked, but it was like, this is not Lost in Space. This is just they're using a name, but it was like, they tried to set up some of the dynamics here. It's like the the head pilot had a son, but it didn't have like a door or anything. They had like a female scientist on there, another co-pilot, Dr. Smith, and I forgot what the other younger female was. So it's like the relationship between that, because it was like only one father and son duo here, and then I think the female scientist brought her sister.
Oh, okay.
And it's weird because if I can remember the link for the pilot, because I saw it on YouTube, many years back.
Ooh, if you
I
find
was
it, send
like,
it to me.
my jaw just dropped, because it's like, this is not the Lost in Space that we got from back in the day, but this is the pilot that they was proposing for the animated series, because everybody loved Dr. Smith.
I hated the Netflix series. I'm sorry. I hated it. I just couldn't get into it. I think I got through season one, and then I was like, okay, I'm done. I just can't
I guess we're
keep
I
it.
guess we're opposites in that aspect, because I hated the movie. I hated Lost in Space the movie, but I love the Netflix series. I
Oh,
love
see,
the I love the Netflix series for a particular reason. It's not the same Lost in Space, but I could see this more as a reboot that was in the same vein as the original TV series. You have to throw everything about the original TV series out the way,
and
and
my
see this
inner
happy
my
home
my
thing.
inner little girl was just looking at that, going, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, 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 no. So it was like, nope, nope, sorry, can't. I just
See,
can't.
my inner little child was going, yes, 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 because we got the treacherous Dr. Smith back.
You got, yeah, but
There, Dr. Smith. I was like,
oh my god,
yay!
she was just.
But they gender swapped her. It's like it shouldn't be a female. It's
I
like,
didn't.
no, but
I
this is the
didn't
Dr.
mind the
Smith that was
gender
originally
swap,
supposed to be a part of the crew
and
in
I
the original
didn't
series.
mind the Dr. Smith. It was the family. It was the Robinson family that gave me the headache. I actually liked the Dr. Smith, but I couldn't stand the family. They didn't feel like a family to me.
That's the reason why you didn't like it, because it was truly a reboot, because it's more of a modern family, especially a modern family that was on the rocks.
And I just kind of went, no, my nostalgia brain can't go through
See,
that. I'm done.
your inner child have to have the at least the parents be in love with one another. Everything would have worked out. But to me, that kind of the whole thing about John and Maureen not seeing eye to eye, the fact that Maureen called in favors to get Will on the crew to be a part of the project because he failed. All the little bitty dirty stuff that was going on, like how John kind of left the family and just wanted to be a part of the service because of the infidelity that was there with Maureen.
And that that kind of killed me, because it was like, okay, you could have her. I get she wants to get her son on. She doesn't want to leave him behind. Got it. Um, but I guess, having grown up on that show as well as other shows, it was just, it
Oh,
was their connection was the core of that family. And again, like certain of the characters, it's like they they had very they had a code. They did not, they work things out, and no matter what, those two were locked together. you know and as a little girl, the idea of she's going out in space to get her man. He got he's away from the ship, he's gonna die. No, she gonna go out there and get her man and bring him home safely. um I liked that. I liked that they were the core of it. Yeah, there was Will Robinson and the robot and Dr. Smith, but it was those two that they were the foundation that everything else kind of
Uh,
came on. And if their relationship had been rocky, they wouldn't have survived.
well, that's kind of like why I like this reboot a little bit better because they made it where the kids' relationship, Judy actually had a purpose in this one.
Okay.
Judy had a purpose. And the thing about it is like between Judy, Penny, and Will, that was the core that should have been the family because it was all about the next generation that was coming up. It's like this was the ultimate experience for all of them. Because
But
you
you
have to
couldn't
think,
but I guess for me and yeah, okay, I'm old fashioned in that regard. I would have preferred a parentage that was more solidly grounded.
and I get that, that would have been like the old school way. But once I saw where things were going in the very beginning, I was like, oh, okay. It's like, they're on the verge of being divorced and everything, and they have to get over their awkwardness and everything. And then eventually they rekindled their relationship. I was like, oh, so everything going to work out in the very end towards you only got past the first season. I got through the whole thing.
Oh, I
There's
was
a lot of character growth
by that
that
I was
that
like,
went
you know
into
what?
all of this.
I'm done.
Yeah,
I was more like, okay,
it
I'm
was a lot of
done.
character
I'm
growth
just
throughout all of this, and it made what the original show made with Will Robinson about how he was the center. This one actually allowed Will Robinson grow into that role.
okay.
It wasn't the fact that it was about him and the robot. It was more along the lines like he kind of in a weird way was the first person to make true contact with a higher intelligence, which was the species of the robot.
Yeah.
The robot was not made on Earth.
No, no.
Unlike the
It
TV
was
series,
not
the TV series, the robot was made on Earth.
and
This
it
one was
became
not.
Will's chief companion and protector, you know,
No,
in many ways.
he was a protector.
Danger Will Robinson, hello.
No, he wasn't his a protector. They befriended one another. It's almost as if you being a soldier. Let's just say you being a soldier, some enemies, something that you could consider a enemy comes and save you, and instead of trying to take your life, he does everything to help you get better before you can move on.
In the new one, but I'm saying in the original
In the
series.
original one, he was a
He was
bodyguard for the
Will,
whole family. The robot
but
was a bodyguard for the whole family.
the primary relationship between the robot was Will
Mm.
because Will was the one that he was out with more. He Will was and Will went farther than say Penny ever
Hmm.
did. Penny and Judy stayed close to home. Will was the one who was always getting out there, and so the robot was more his constant companion and his protector.
Hmm.
Because he had to keep Will safe. He couldn't lock the boy in, so it was like I better like not let him get dead. Um, but and I got the relationship with, okay, this creature is supposed to be your enemy, you saved it, and you develop a relationship. That part I was getting, but like I said, the family dynamic, just as a parent, you
Hmm.
know
You could get past the parents, and it was like
I
for
just
the
I
longest time, I couldn't stand Maureen. I could not stand Maureen until it got closer to the end,
okay.
and then everything that she did and her motivation was really spelled out in a better way. Where it's like, oh, I guess a mother would do that for any one of her children. Because Maureen, to me, it's like instead of being the rock that she was in the original series, she was the detriment to everybody because of all the secrets and stuff that she was keeping.
Exactly. And I just and as a mom, I'm just sitting there going, no, sorry, I'm done. I'm
So
you know.
you was in the camp like me, kill Maureen.
It's like, can something eat her? Can we drop a ship on her head? Can we, can she just get shot out into space by mistake? It's like, if we get rid of her, the rest of the series might actually be better. But yeah, I was not, and I was so, Mrs. Robinson was like, she was kind of the, you know, other than Uhura Peel. I created this like dream mom for myself, and I named her Uhura Peel because,
Mhm.
she could kick ass like Mrs. Peel, but she was, tall and black and elegant like Uhura. She was the perfect mom. But she also had some of that great mom quality, like Mrs. Robinson could bake cookies. So I just did that was my dream mommy. And they kind of, crapped all over my dream mommy, and I just got mad.
And
I'm an evil woman, Cliff.
that
I am
anger
an
is justified.
evil, petty, petty woman. I will admit that. I am a petty, evil woman.
No, it's justified. It's justified because that was something that I was not even expecting from the looking at the original series and getting the Netflix one. Like I said, this is coming from the person that does not like the Lost in Space movie at all. The movie, the cinematic movie, not so good. The
I
Netflix series, I still give it a thumbs up. It's good, but there's some parts that you just have to like really get past, and one of them is Maureen. Maureen, it was too modernized. Maureen was way too more modernized and wasn't the, if I could say, the most wholesome mother ever.
She didn't have to be wholesome, but I've known people in this day and age who've been married and have stayed married. And when things have gone wrong, they've worked it out and stayed married. I guess, and to me, that was just when you've got, how do you have a family when everybody is just, especially two people who should be leading that family are so at odds with each other?
And that was the thing that kind of threw me for a loop because it's like, why did you force the separation with John? And John was like, I don't want, it's like, as much as I love my kids, I don't want to be around it. Well, don't want to be around them because of you.
Yeah,
It's like, I'd
that
rather be on the battlefield fighting than to be with my kids.
and that's sad.
That's bad.
That was a heartbreak, and it was, like I said, I just couldn't. I got to the point I didn't care how it turned out, and when I found out they canceled, it was like, like,
No,
petty
to
mean.
me,
I'm
to
a
me,
mean
I
petty
wasn't
woman.
like yay when they canceled it. It was more along the lines. It's like they did what they could with the series because where are you going to really go with it beyond what they did?
Also,
It was at best 2 to 3 seasons at tops, based upon what they was trying to do.
and it was like, okay, instead of the family on the Jupiter 2, we're gonna make it a whole big thing, and all these other families. It's like, okay, right,
No, it was still about the Jupiter too.
but
It was still about the Jupiter too, but it was about the bigger thing was about the colony that they were supposed to go to.
establishing the colony and whatnot, instead of the explore they the whole point of the Robinsons wasn't they weren't colonizing, they were more exploration.
Right.
This was more, they had, oh, okay, we're going to wipe all that out and just make them colonizers. And it's like,
Well,
okay.
it was their excuse to get them in space. It's like they were supposed to be colonizers, and then they got away from the rest of the group into Jupiter 2, and then they had to find their way back to the colonizers. And but then again, when they finally found their way back, they brought a little something something with them. And that's where it really got interesting and the story kind of changed. But with Maureen being the way that she was, and then the way that they made Judy useful. And the way that, and it's sad that they had to make Judy adopted in this one, but it made sense. It made sense that they, the whole thing about they, and that was another, plot point for Judy that made sense, but it wasn't needed if you love the old series, because it's like, why couldn't she just be a, naturally born daughter of John and Maureen? Why do you have to, make her a adopted daughter based upon what happened to her father, who was best friends with John and Maureen?
Yeah. But I also realized it is 9:27.
And you ready to go, and people got to eat, and we're going a little bit too far. And I know, Cliff, you've been
You've been
sitting there
sitting there,
quiet.
you've been so patient and quiet. There
I,
are times when I think if you knew where we lived, you would just come and do us both in.
No, I just felt bad. I can't. I missed the Lost in Space hype, so I couldn't join in. But before we left, we were talking about unsung heroes of the pre MCU comic book movie universe.
mm-hmm.
You have to mention the original Swamp Thing movie.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Because I mean, before there was Blade, there was Swamp Thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
It wasn't the greatest version of Swamp Thing, but it was a good
No.
movie, and it was for its time kind of creepy. So
Yes.
Yeah,
it
but
was good.
yeah, Swamp Thing was also still DC, but you have to understand DC was king of television and movies at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they were willing to take a chance on a comic book character.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't superhero
A
Batman.
relatively unknown comic
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
character
I was
by
about to say
masses.
he's not, it wasn't like, Superman, Batman, Aquaman, Wonder Woman. This was
And
more of a,
it was the pre Alan Moore Swamp Thing.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
So it wasn't even when it was like the height of popularity. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I know but I had always liked Swamp Thing and Man Thing. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm weird. My brain doesn't quite function as it should, but that's just me. You know.
Yeah.
Hey,
Like
I
I,
got a shirt with poo all over it.
yeah, that's true. But I
I've
just
been
wish that
waiting
he
until
was
that
able
joke all
to
day.
chime in on the Lost in Space, because I know he probably watched the old TV series, but the movie and the Netflix show, they were
I saw the
two different
movie.
endings of two different coins here. And I don't even know if Elaine even liked the movie, the actual cinematic
I don't
movie.
now. I think I've seen the movie had some kind of weird like spider things in it, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it had Joey from Friends.
Yeah, I've seen the
It
movie.
had
I
Joey
haven't.
from Friends. It had what was it, the first Mrs. Cruz,
Mm,
Tom Cruise's
yeah.
first wife.
Uh, yeah, I
Um,
never saw the Netflix series.
I had seen the movie. I didn't. How do I put it? It wasn't horrible.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't
It
horrible, but
wasn't
it was not
horrible,
Lost in
and
Space.
for what because especially um, back then, letting them take chances on things.
Mhm.
You know, especially when you've got so many. This was at a time when the studios were beginning to switch from development execs making decisions on script development and stuff, and marketing execs having
Mhm.
that job. Um, and Mrs. Girlie got to play Mrs. Robinson because she had a great butt.
Mm-hmm.
They
She
didn't.
had a great butt, and she had the hair color.
Yeah, that's why they hired her. So, and that was kind of sad. They were making this, Joey from Friends. Just
Yo,
saying.
yeah, I was like, why would they make him Don West? I don't understand.
But like I said, you had people making decisions based on who they wanted to have sex with or hang out with, as opposed to who would have been right for the role. And when you do that, you screw it up. It could have been with a with a better cast, and I can't remember how. I think they had like 7 or 8 different writers,
Mm-hmm.
because this was at a time where you measured. Um, there were execs who were measuring their prowess by how many writers they hired for a movie. Whether they needed, you don't need 15 different writers to work a script. If you have to hire 15 different writers to work a script, the problem isn't the writers, it's the script
Mm-hmm.
to begin with. You don't need that many writers to hire to, but they would be like, we had 10 writers on this script. Oh, we had 15. We had 25. You know, and they would hire writers for some actors could get to a point where I don't like that dialogue, so you have to hire a writer just to do my dialogue. Yeah, it
Okay.
was, but that's
Yeah.
how, even if it wasn't necessary, that's how people, that was one of the ways that actors flex their power. I want, Demi Moore had a movie, The Butcher's Wife. Lovely little film. I was one of the few people who got to read the script before she got hold of it. A test screening. She is not a comedic actress, and the test screening showed that the all the secondary actors and actresses were getting the necessary laughs because she was supposed to be this woman. She marries a butcher. She's psychic. She changes this little small town with her psychic abilities, and all these supporting actors have these little bits that add humor and heart to the movie. She's still at the center of it, but she is not a comedic actress. And she got mad because at the test screening, people were laughing at the areas they should have been laughing at, but nobody was laughing at her. And it didn't occur to her that maybe they weren't laughing at her because she wasn't funny. So she, because at that time she was Demi Moore, demanded they rewrite the script so she could have funny lines. And when they did that, it killed the movie.
That, but then again, those practices were even before then because you now made me think about Jonathan Harris. That's his full name. Jonathan Harris ended up flexing his muscles by season 3 of Lost in Space because they never
It
wrote
becomes
line, they
more the
never wrote
Dr. Smith
dialogue
show.
for him. They never wrote dialogue for him ever since then. And it's like the dialogue between me and Will is going to be always impromptu, and I'm always going to make up my own lines. And I remember all the interviews with Billy Mummy. Billy Mummy was like, "Nope." Jonathan Harris made certain that I didn't have that many lines because he controlled the dialogue.
Yeah, Dr. Smith had become the character and it went to his head, and he decided he was gonna be Kirk and Spock in one body, because that was part of what happened to Star Trek towards the end,
Mhm.
where Nimoy, if Nimoy got a laugh or something, then Shatner had to have a laugh, or Shatner, they had this. It became less about the series and more about their egos. And when Nimoy got to direct, was it The Voyage Home?
Mm-hmm.
And it did so well, Shatner demanded that he be allowed to direct as well. So, it was like you couldn't give something to Nimoy without giving something to Shatner. Because if you did, Shatner wouldn't show up. And he had enough pull because he was Captain Kirk. Well, you can't make the movies without me.
Which one was the Kirk one? Because it's like Voyage
Shatner
Home.
was Kirk.
No, no, no,
Both
no,
were
no.
Jewish.
No. I talk about which Star Trek movie because Voyage Home made sense.
Yeah, and that was Nimoy.
Undiscovered
Nimoy did a
Country did
couple of
not.
them. Huh?
Undiscovered Country did not, and I forgot. And Final
I think
Frontier. And
those
Final
are
Frontier
Shatner's.
made sense.
I think Undiscovered Country may have been Shatner. I'm not. I
Okay.
have to check again. But
No, I want IMDb. Give me a second here,
okay.
and
But
then we
yeah,
got to
that
close up here, and then we got to close up here.
But yeah, that Hollywood was very much, you would get to a certain part and people would flex their power by, it wasn't just what you had in your trailer, but it was also, what you could demand for your
No,
character.
Undiscovered Country with Nicholas Meyer.
Oh, okay.
Give me another second here. About to take a look at Voyage Home real quick because I
I
think you're
think
right.
Voyage Home was Nimoy. I think that was Nimoy.
Which movie was it where they were looking for God or something like that?
That was Undiscovered Country.
That's Undiscovered Country,
That's
where his
Undiscovered
brother
Country.
shows, where the unknown Vulcan brother shows up, and he can mind
Hmm.
screw you, and
Yeah,
he's trying to find God. Yeah,
yeah, okay. And
yeah, that's the one that also shows Nichelle backlit, doing the hoochie coochie dance and singing.
mm,
And she had fun with that scene.
Okay, yep, you're right. Undiscovered Country was Leonard Nimoy. So that would have meant Final Frontier had to be
I
shot.
think that was Shatner.
And yes, people, we do fact check on the show.
um,
Because I get things wrong occasionally. It's been a while. It's been a while.
Yep, and Final Frontier was Shatner. Star Trek Five, Final Frontier.
Yeah, because it was like, Nimoy had sat down and said, yeah,
Oh, it
they've
was
been
Final
talking.
Frontier that was the search for God. It wasn't Undiscovered
mm,
Country.
Oh, okay.
Final Frontier
mm,
was the search for
No,
God.
Undiscovered Country is the one
With Spock's
where,
brother. Yeah, that was Spock's brother.
mm.
No, I was wrong.
no,
Final Frontier is Spock's brother.
the Undiscovered Country is the one where they're trying to make peace with the Klingons. This is before Kittimer. This was before the disaster at Kittimer. They had a chance to make peace, I believe, but there were, those on both sides.
Was this the one where they almost committed treason?
Yeah, because there
Okay.
were there were those on both sides who didn't want to see peace between the Klingons and Starfleet, and so things stayed rocky. It was because it's a Klingon. I don't think it's the High Commander, but he's killed. The Klingon
Mm.
This is the one
emissary.
where they hijacked that
They
the
end up on
Klingon
Kirk and Spock
they
ends
hijacked
up
that
on the
Klingon
prison
bird of
planet.
prey and went back into the Federation. They went back into the Federation to try to get more ships out their direction, if I remember correctly.
And the guy who's trying to broker the guy on the Klingon side who's trying to broker the peace deal is murdered
Mm-hmm.
by someone on the Federation side, and his daughter, um, because it is, especially considering Klingon culture, she at that time she ends up taking over his position, and but they don't quite. It's not the, they leave it where it is not as, what's the word? They weren't at each other
Mm-hmm.
the way they had been in this series, but it wasn't totally peace. That doesn't come until Kittimer, the attack by the Romulans on the Kittimer, at Kittimer, the base, and the Federation then swoops in and, saves what people they can.
Right.
But they,
Okay.
but because it was the first, it was, a female captain who, because they had the Next Generation where it's how they saved, the Crosby girl, who I hate with all my guts. There's nothing you can say that'll ever make me like her.
Right. I remember this one more so because they almost committed treason because again they were Kirk Kirk was in charge of the so-called assassination attempt until he find out what really was going
What
on.
was going on, and then he decides he doesn't want to get
Right.
involved in it. It was like, it's a pretty interesting one because they go some dark places.
very dark
Is-
place.
For that trek. They go to some very dark places. But
Is that the one that ends with basically them stealing the Enterprise and saying saying they're going to fly to Neverland?
No,
no.
no. This one was, I believe, they ended up hijacking a Klingon bird of prey,
Yeah, because
and
Kirk and Spock were on.
almost firing on their own on the Federation ships.
Because Kirk and Spock were also on a they were on a Klingon prison planet.
Mm-hmm.
They got put on a prison planet.
I
We'll
remember
have
the
to do
prison
this on
planet.
another show and take you through the whole thing.
Right, right.
I just remember at the end of that
worst
one.
comes to worst, we'll watch it. We'll do a watch party here on the show.
I'll host it.
I'll be washing my hair.
But
I just remember at the end
I
of the
was
one
gonna
he.
let you play with the birdie.
Well, in that case, I just remember the end of the one where he goes, "Where are we going, Captain?" His second star to the left, straight on till morning. I was like,
Oh,
what?
that's is that Search for Spock?
I just remember it was like they were basically implying they were stealing the Enterprise. I was like, how are you stealing a spaceship? They know where you are
that
all the
happened.
time.
I want to say that happened in
This is fantasy.
no.
Nichelle, because Nichelle is guarding the ship. Remember,
Uh,
Nichelle is on duty with a younger man who's complaining about how there's no excitement where they are. There's no excitement, and then Nichelle gets up and she turns on him with a blaster,
that
and
was
he's
Final
like, "What's this?"
Frontier,
And she's
wasn't it?
like, "Huh."
Was it that Final Frontier?
No, that was the one. I'm trying to remember. That was the one. I have to go through it.
I think that was Final Frontier because remember it's like they were no longer allowed to be on NC 101 B at the time.
It might have been, but it was. They had to steal a ship, and Nichelle had helped them get
Mm-hmm.
a ship.
Mm-hmm.
And she did it by locking Mr. Excitement in a closet.
Right.
Because they're like,
They
"Are you
have
going to
to
be?"
get the Enterprise back. They
And
have to get
she ends up catching up with them later. She
Mm-hmm.
ends up, but because the guy's like, "What are you doing?" She goes, "This is fantasy." And they're like, "Are you gonna be?" "Oh yeah, I can handle Mr. Excitement." It's like she locks him in a closet. It's like I said, I'll go through my Star Trek thing and get it.
I just remember younger me really liked Star Trek 2 and 3 and got really confused with Star Trek 4
Okay.
I
because
like
they
Star
went
Trek
back in time
4.
to save whales.
They have to go back and
No. They wasn't trying to
Now
save
that I'm
whales. They
older, I
wasn't trying to
liked it.
save whales.
Yes, they did. They had to the voyage home. They had to go
Yeah.
back to Earth. They had
have
to go back in time. They had to save 2 blue whales, one of which was
Yes.
pregnant, and they had to.
And
I thought they had to record.
No,
the-
they
No, they
had
brought
to
the whales
actually go get the whales.
Right, they have to go back in time to record the whales and
They had to
everything.
No, they
go
brought
get
them back.
the whales. The thing that talked to the whales wanted the whales, not a recording, because they found the reason they figured out it had to be whales because they had found a recording of the noise this thing was making, and then Spock was like, "Wait a minute, running through this, running through that. Oh wait, he's looking to talk to whales, specifically this particular species of whales that had gone extinct." They had to go
during
back.
their time, during their time,
They had to go back and get those whales because James Doohan, mini convention afterwards, would get up and go, "Captain, there'd be whales here," and everybody goes, "Ah!"
Yeah. Yeah, I just remember
I still like the whole computer with the mouth. He had the mouth in his head. It's like, no, that's not how he used it. And he put it back on the desk and rolled around. It's like, oh, how quaint.
And Bones at the hospital, and he gives the lady a pill, and she's like, "I'm dying," and then he goes, "Here, take this pill," and she takes it, and then 20 minutes later, "I was sick, I was dying, doctor. He gave me a pill, I grew a whole new kidney." And it's like,
yes.
you know, you're not supposed to do stuff like that. That was it's like you couldn't recreate that. You're not supposed to do that. But yeah, that was, they had to go back and get the wheels, because that's the one where they
They had the illegal cloaking device on the Enterprise, because remember,
Yeah.
they had to cloak the Enterprise to be
was that
on
an
in that
Enterprise
time
or did no?
frame.
Was that the Enterprise or was that a Bird of Prey?
It could have been the Bird of Prey
They had a Bird of
Yeah,
Prey.
because at the end of
They couldn't get the
3, the
Enterprise. They
Enterprise
had to
blew up.
use a
right
Bird of Prey,
because of the
and
cloaking device. Yeah.
they stole the Bird of Prey because they couldn't let anybody know what they were up to. So they stole a Bird of Prey and they got it there. And at the end, they had this model in the water, and that was not scripted. They did the final scene and then decided to all jump off the side into the water. Because
Young,
they crazy.
young me was very confused by some of the Star Trek movies. And
Well,
then when
that's
then when they
okay.
started looking for God, I was like, I gotta go.
That
I
that
don't need
that
this.
one that one is the most confusing out of all of them.
Well, that
The Final
and
Frontier.
the
That one was like, why?
well, it kind of, they tried to make a more, what they thought would be a more clarified version of Star Trek: The Motion Picture. It was like somebody wanted to, but this time, instead of it being an android who found, who became God, became like the emissary for God or whatever, found, Bija must merge with its creator, because it was the ship that they had come across, V'ger, which was actually Voyager, um, wanted to reconnect. It kind of got religious and now wanted to, it wanted to smash with God. And that's what it got to do. But they had to find an Indian beauty queen and shave her head so that they could do that. Because I guess that made it more
I
wholesome.
mean, it was just that day and age, and that was the most confusing thing about it. And then what was it about Star Trek Two with Kirstie Alley as a Vulcan?
She was okay. She was raised on Vulcan, but she was half Vulcan, half Romulan.
Right.
She was raised on Vulcan, but her parentage was Romulan. So and
She
but
was supposed to be like the wannabe Spock because Spock was away.
he was mentoring her
Mhm.
because he saw in her some of the things that he had had to deal with in his youth, where you have to take this more emotional side of your, because one of the things between the Romulans and the Vulcans, where the Vulcans are very logic, the Romulans are like, no, we hot-blooded mofos. So there was that whole kind of having to deal with that dichotomy
Mhm.
of who you are, these two sides, and which
Technically,
side.
they were the same race,
They were
just
the
different
same ways,
philosophy.
but
Different philosophy, but the same race.
yeah, they kind of split off, and the Romulans went and did their thing, and the because Romulans like, no, we ain't doing that. Sorry, bye, we out.
I just remember trying to figure out how the dude from Fantasy Island didn't wear a shirt for that long. I was just
When he went back to Fantasy Island, they had a couple of episodes where he got to take his shirt off to show that I see these is real muscle.
And that's the messed up thing, because if you watch the original 1960s one, he was kind of that buff back then,
Yeah, I mean that was
Mhm,
playing Khan.
yeah. He
mhm.
was
When he played the older version of it, I believe he had to like go to the gym and buff back up and everything,
he had
because
to
he was
buff
nowhere
back
near
up.
that.
He had to buff back up, but then he decided, well, the ABC decided, well, you all buff now, so we can use that buff.
Yeah, that's like show off the real goods for Mr. Rourke.
And there was a couple they had early in that following season where he had to actually do a couple of episodes where but I think it was getting to the point where he was like, okay, you know what, I don't think we need my nipples on screen anymore.
I never.
She's just she didn't hear the rest of the conversation, but she was like, she liked the nipples.
Didn't in
Sorry.
Fantasy Island he like meet the devil or something at once?
I think he had to fulfill a fantasy where somebody actually beat the devil.
Yeah,
Okay.
you
Okay.
know, because the question was always about Rourke was he a demon or was
Mm.
he an angel? That was one of the
Um,
questions they occasionally would play about with on the show was what was Mr. Rourke? Because in the first season he played a couple of the characters that he
mhm,
actually they people would escape the danger, and then later you'd see him, he'd have you're like, oh yeah, or he'd be taking off makeup, and it was like, oh okay,
Mm.
he was portraying that character. And then and then later later seasons they made it more of a spiritual component where he was and the question was he an angel or was he a demon or something else?
I always thought
All
he
I
was
know is
something else.
even back then when I was young and that show was on, I knew he was sketchy because he had a pet tattoo. I knew something was wrong.
Oh, come, they're playing, boss. They're
And then when I got
playing.
older, I realized, oh, he a freak. That's what it is. So,
Okay.
No, well,
Okay.
it wasn't just that. It's like, oh, that guy has to be kind of like a henchman. And that's always
mm-hmm.
what I thought Tattoo was. He was kind of like the guy that was doing stuff under the scenes and everything. Because
Behind the scenes, but they never played him like that. He was, he
he
was
was
kind.
concierge service.
Yes, yes, he was in charge of the concierge stuff, and he was the one who let Mr. Rourke know when they're playing, boss, they're playing. You know, um, Hervé Villages.
I
Yeah.
had a, I had a, I had a little tattoo figure, and I had a Twinkie from Buck Rogers, and they were soulmates even back then.
Bitty 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 bitty.
Bitty, 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 bitty.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. I am a bad person. You may, you know, just tell all the dudes I am an evil, petty woman, and y'all need to replace me because I'm just weird. But anyway, it is almost 10 o'clock. I have
Yeah.
already missed most of Critical Role,
Uh-oh.
and I
But
have
at
not.
least you got the replay. You can watch it on the replay
I
here.
can. I need to eat something because
Mhm.
I've only had the tea. I had a bowl of cereal
Wait,
earlier, but
wait. Did it have a sploosh?
no, no. This
See, if it
is
had a sploosh, you would have been a lot more animated.
no, no. This was what is it? The sangria zinger herbal tea. I'm still I got by the end of C2E2, at the end of 3 days, I have laryngitis. I
Yeah,
have no
she
voice.
had laryngitis before the beginning of day 3.
Mm.
Yes. Usually I don't get it until day around mid-time day 3. This time I had already started getting it midway into day 2.
Mhm.
So, I'm still trying to coat my throat and get it back into, you know, somewhat healthiness. Isn't that right, Mr. Bo? Yes, it is. That's
Mhm.
see, this,
Yep,
this is my Mozart.
yep, believe the little bitty thing here. Now it is that time for us to say goodbye because again, we wasn't expecting a 3 hour thing, but we did get
Yes.
into some good stuff. And I will say this here: the most trippy thing that I have ever seen Mr. Rourke do was that game show that he did on Fantasy Island, that one episode of Fantasy Island where they had to choose which door that they had to go through and they had to survive
Oh yeah.
they have to survive each door that was chosen, and he keeps warning them. It's like, you have one door that would always lead you to some type of safety, but one of the doors will lead you to a possible death. And
And
you have,
nobody ever
if you
listens.
pick that door, somebody could actually die.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody ever listens.
Somebody came close. Somebody came close to dying. But the whole fact of the matter is, it's like, this is why I try to, I'll go back to what you were saying. It's like, was he an angel? Was he a demon? Or was he something else? And that would made me think that he was always something else,
I've
because
always
he had always had some type of way to explain the morals of what you were supposed to learn from that fantasy.
and always that the show got you to that danger point where there is the part where the fantasy always starts out good, but then as you go through it, you start seeing where things unravel, and you start seeing the consequences, and you get to that point. It's like Tutor the Turtle. Oh, Mr. Wizard, oh.
And Mr. Work was always there to go twizzle, twazzle, twazzle,
Twaddle
tall.
dog.
Time to
Time for
bring
this
this
one.
one home.
Time for this one to come home. Be just what you's is, not what you's not. Folks, that what is the happiest life. Cliff is just going, why did I
Yeah, how do we
agree to this?
remember this type of stuff? You never know. It's like the Tootsie Roll. The world would never know.
We
Right.
go out and we find the thug boys and we
And
suck out their
I remember
brains.
that like the back of my hand. It's like I never remember the name of Tutor Turtle until a lot of people kept repeating it. But it's like, yeah, it was the turtle. It's like he always did this, that, the other. And the wizard always brought it back. And it's like, what wizard? The same wizard that did this. Is like the one that went, and I would go right into it. Twizzle, twazzle, twazzle, tall. Time to bring this one
This
home.
time for this one to come home. Yeah, I love that little thing. I used to drive my sister crazy by running after
That
going,
and
"Oh,
Commander
Mr.
McBride.
Wizard!"
I remember that, and the many adventures of Commander McBride.
Oh, yeah. Haven't seen that.
It's like, did I ever tell you about the one time that I beat the whole Apache tribe with one bow and arrow? Like, it's like, no,
It's the life
Commander.
of
How,
Commander McBride.
how true of a story is that, Commander? Well, let me tell you. And he would go into it. It's like, that was some quite smashing story here. Is it all true? Quite. It is.
With his big old pipe.
Quite.
And we are now at 10 o'clock.
All right, so let's do this here. We're going to have Elaine start first, and then we come to Cliff, and we end up everything here.
Okay, Peabody, fire up the way back. We're having fun tonight. Okay. Hi, I'm Elaine's birdie friend. Thank you for coming to see us tonight. Yes, we went over, but stuff happens. Thank you for being with us, whether you were in poor Don. He's like, oh God, I don't believe I'm still here. Whether you're here with us now or you watch us later, we appreciate you. You are wonderful. You make this worthwhile. Okay. So it's not just three crazy, a couple of crazy old folks driving this younger dude nuts. Okay. So thanks. You can find me at lenscaponline.com or find me here at YouTube, youtube.com/Elaine.Haygood. Okay? Thank you. Have a good time. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Y'all be good. Night, guys.
And there's Cliff.
I'm still here in Olive Branch. I don't have nothing going on. On a down note, I would appreciate any positive energy being sent towards my family right now. It's greatly appreciated. And other than that, thank you. Come again.
All right. And that brings it to me here, where I will be back this Saturday for another episode of From the Desk of a Small Press Publisher, where we do our outro show for C2E2, talk about some other thoughts here, show you the remainder books that we picked up over the show here, talk about some of the things that had happened, and show you some of the other goods and stuff that went on within this last week and everything, do our accountability, and have some more fun and talking and sharing, just like how we was doing here. Unfortunately, we got into like some nostalgia, and we just couldn't let go of it. So please forgive us for going over an hour over our normal time here. A 3 hour show is not our intention. We try to get it out of here by 2, but we brought it to an end, and I hope that you enjoyed it. So if you can, make certain that you like, and if you like what we do, subscribe to this channel. It'd be greatly appreciated. And as we always say, live life, grow, and be well. And unlike the founder of this show, Brian K. Morris, who we're going to try to get back here shortly, I don't care if you wash your hands, but never, and I do mean never, apologize for being awesome. Have a great rest of your Thursday. I will see you Saturday. The rest of the crew will see you next week. And we are out of here. Bye.